Okay. I'd like to get started. Yeah, we don't have the flag. Well, that's awesome. Do we? Thank you.
All right.
We're looking for the flag.
You got lunch.
Okay, I'd like to call the Wednesday, September 25th, 2024 meeting of the Town of Coventry Planning Commission to order. It is now about 6:39. Determination of a quorum. I just take attendance quick. Mr. Kenny. Here. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Studley.
Here.
Mr. Burke.
Here.
Member Price.
Here.
Secretary Smith. I'm here, and excused tonight are the chairman, Ron Flynn, and member Reyes. So we have a quorum of 7. The emergency evacuation plan, go out the doors where you came in. If for some reason you're blocked, there are doors back here behind the stage. I'd like everyone to now pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag, States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is this a coding the Zoom meeting, right? Yeah, people on Zoom? Okay. First item is approval of the minutes from the August 28, 2024 meeting, Planning Commission. I have a motion and I have a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Ayes have it. Item 6 deals with the Community Development Block Grant Annual Application and Housing Program. This is a public hearing, public comment on the proposed activities under consideration on an application, State of Rhode Island, for a Community Development Block Grant Program and Housing Program. The first item is a Community Development Block Grant to pave streets in the Quidnick area by the Department of Public Works, totaling almost $500,000. And the second one is the housing rehabilitation, basically renovations to Naughty Oak Road Village, Naughty Oak Village kitchens, and the cost of that is about $850,000. Anything? Do you have anything to add before I open the public?
No, I think you gave a good background. There's only one slight modification to one of these projects for the budget. And I'm just gonna read this for the record. On the project that is the Quidnick Road improvements, the new proposed budget number after accounting for some increases in costs is $520,741.73. And I would note in the memo that you received, the Eisenhower Street is no longer one of the streets they're going to cover. It's being replaced by Anderson Avenue. But the way you describe the two projects is accurate. And really, there's going to be two components. One will be to hear if there's any comment from the public. And then after we close the public hearing, we'll come back and there'll be motions for you to consider.
Okay, thank you. I entertain a motion to public comment on these topics.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. None opposed. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on the town's plans to apply for development grants to pave streets in the Quidnick Avenue area at a cost of approximately $520,000? There's about, looks about 15 streets, and then also to make improvements, renovations to Naughty Oak Village. That's our housing development. Mainly the work is being done to the kitchens at a cost of about $850,000. Anyone here want to comment on that? you have any comments from the board? Anyone on Zoom? If you're on Zoom and you would like to comment on either one of those applications for a development block grant, would you please raise your hand on Zoom? And Cody indicated that no hands are raised on Zoom. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to close the public comment period on these two applications. We have a motion from Mr. Burke. Do I have a second? We have a second. Kenny, any discussion? Any other comments? Hearing none. We'll close public comment. But at this time, I would like to entertain one motion or two, Doug.
The way that I would prefer we do this is that each of these two projects need two separate motions. And why don't we do the Quidneck roadway project first? This is a project that it's become our only project for the annual application. The other project is actually being still being applied for within the same process, but it's being applied for in a different pot of money, part of the rolling application. So technically, since they're two different programs, I'd ask you to make each project motions separately. So if as you know, there's a staff memorandum, and Jerry Manning, to my left is the CDBG project manager. She's done the Lions work on all of this. She's here to answer questions if there are any on, any of the content pieces. But you'll see the staff memorandum on each have two recommended motions at the end of them. So I'd ask to first consider the motions for the Quidneck Road Improvements Project as part of the annual application.
Okay, so you're looking for, just to reiterate, a motion that indicates this application is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the second motion recommend town council make the application.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move forward the CDBG grant, competitive annual application for Quidneck Road improvements, Public Works Department, $520,741.73. That certification that activities are consistent with the town's community plan and local development ordinance and regulations. And two, recommendation to the town council to authorize the town manager to file the application.
Two separate.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Mr. Smith, if we can amend that so that we will take the town council authorization as a separate motion. But the first motion, the way you read that first part was perfect. Yep, understood that this is a motion that the commission certifies the applications are consistent with the comp plan and local development ordinances as you stated.
So I have a motion to that effect. I have a second by Mr. Kennedy. Do you have any other discussion on them? Hearing none, I'll take the vote. All in favor? Aye. None. Motion passes. And now if I can just have a second motion with the recommendation one way, town council.
I'll make the motion, second, recommendation to, again, for the, road repaving and repairs, $520,741.73. Recommendation to the town council to authorize the town manager to file the applications.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Kenny, motion by Mr. Smith, and any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, and now we'll take the second item, which is the renovations at Naughty Oak Village kitchens.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. This motion is regards to community development block grant funds to make improvements at the property of Naughty Oak Village. This is a motion to certify that the activities are consistent with the town comprehensive community plan and local ordinance regulation. This is a motion to approve the $850,000 to rehab 75 kitchens.
The motion, do I have a second? I have a motion by Mr. Anderson, I have a second by Mr. Kenny. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Second motion, Mr. Chair, the same thing, community development block grant. This is actually just a recommendation, to go forward to the town council to authorize the town manager to file the application. And again, that's for the $850,000 for the 75 kitchens, needed at the Nadio Village.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion by member Anderson, second by member Kenny. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item. We have two public hearings tonight. The first one being carried over from the last two meetings, and that is Center New England Master Plan, Major Land Development, Associated Dimensional Variance. Owners Matthew McGowan, Receiver for Commerce Park Properties LLC, Commerce Park Associates 4 LLC, and Catapult Realty LLC. The applicant being Star Capital LLC. Good evening.
Okay. Good evening.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. My name is Kelly Salvatore, for the record. We're here again on the applicant's master plan hearing. This is a public hearing. With me tonight, along with myself, Tim Eden is here, principal of Star Capital, who is the applicant. Nicole Riley, professional engineer. James Cronin is here from Crossman. He'll speak about traffic tonight. John Carter is a professional landscape architect, and he's going to talk a little bit about landscaping. Joe Lombardo is a professional planner, and he's going to talk about the physical impact study. Just to give a very brief tonight, just about the prior presentation. So we're presenting you with a proposal for 712 units on developable lots 2, 3, and 4. 2 and 3 are going to be those duplex units, and on 4, we're proposing multifamily apartment style units. Although the town does not require LMI units, and the court orders in this case, the receivership prohibits LMI units. We have offered to work with the receiver to request a change that would permit 15% LMI units, which would likely be clustered into 2 buildings on lot 4. I'll get right into it. You heard a pretty substantial presentation last time we were here. We're just going to present a couple more experts that were not here last time. I'm going to start with Joe Lombardo. As you likely know, Joe is a land use and planning expert and has presented many fiscal impact studies on projects like this to planning boards throughout the state of Rhode Island. And he's just going to provide highlights of the report and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kelly. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Again, for the record, my name is Joseph Lombardo, home office in Westerly, Rhode Island. We put together a request from the applicant, a fiscal impact study, which basically does 2 things for the community to look at. It is an informational report. It looks at trying to estimate the population will be of the project, and as a sub of that, how many school-age children might project that. In addition, the second part of the report takes a look at generating revenue from the project, taxes, and then it takes a look at municipal expenses and educational expenses related to the project. So I'll just again, I know the report has had it, and it's part of the record. I just was going to give you a brief summary. Just a little bit of background on how we do this. In this instance, so it was very important to try to estimate the revenue as fairly and as equitably as we could. We contacted and worked with the tax assessors to come up with what they felt this project would generate as far as an assessment as that relates to the amount of taxpayers. If it were all built today's tax rates would generate. And you can see from the report, it's a little over $4.8 million for the entire project. That's what it would generate in revenue. On the expense side, we do two things. We look at, all your municipal expenses, the major municipal expenses that relate to residential development. And we take your population and say, it's basically about $1,000 a person to provide all of these services to any resident in the town of Coventry. Same with the educational, we take the net cost of the community for educating a student, taking into account that the community receives state aid. And we divide by the number of students, that's the last census in the school system, and arrive at cost per student. And those are what we use to provide you with an estimate of expenses. On the expense side, I projected a total of approximately 1.66. So that really leaves the community net revenue surplus, so to speak, a little over $3 billion, which would go into the general fund and could be used, obviously, to offset expenses in general community. The second side of that is looking at population. And what I use is a number of factors, looking at previous projects and reports that I've studied over the years, and some more recent larger multifamily projects we were seeing happening all over the state that actually have residents living in them, schools, children living in them, to come up with what we call a multiplier. And that multiplier typically for multifamily is 10 students per 100 units. And that's on the conservative side, but that's what we're seeing right now. Some of the units, a fair number of units in this project are one-bedroom studios. I wouldn't necessarily project school-age children to be occupied. So it's really the two-bedroom condominiums and the two-bedroom apartments that are generating the school-age children, which I projected at 50. So as you would imagine, that will fluctuate on an annual basis. It'd likely be spread out between your elementary, middle school, and high school, so maybe 16, 17 students per sector of your school system. And that just really gives you an idea the impact to the community from residents, which is a little over 1,300 residents, and a little over 50 school-age children. In the very back of my report, had an opportunity where you received it. Star Capital prepared some additional, what I call economic development, secondary impacts of this project to the community. And if you took a look at that, you see what the impact is of building a project like this in the community, as far as construction job managers, architects, engineers, indirect jobs, goods and services to the people that are constructing the project. They're short term, but they're certainly relevant. And then there's long-term jobs this project would generate just to manage this project of the size here. So that's in the appendix. If you've already taken a look at that, you can see that there's a substantial secondary impact to the community from the economic side, benefits the local businesses in the community and producing additional jobs. So with that, I would leave it to answer any questions the commission has now or later. We're staying here, but have any questions on what we produce, let's have to answer.
Does anyone on the board questions regarding this packet or the presentation? Okay.
You have a question?
I saw this appendix A with the additional comparable apartment and hotel complexes, and it came up with 6.65, which is less than.
Right.
Is that?
These are much older. If you look, I don't know if I have a date on here, this is 2009. So we're seeing a little bit of a trend on these bigger multifamily projects. If you look at,
Well, you were more on the conservative side anyway.
I was trying to be conservative, but if you look in the report itself, where I reference projects down in North Kingstown, Reynolds Farm, and those places, those are real developments that are in place that's large. And they took accurate census recently, so we have an idea that it might be a little higher than 6 or 7. So I went to 10 just to be conservative.
It was nice to see that in there, because I think we've gotten fiscal reports before that didn't actually, they had numbers and it was supported through something, but the actual data was not included, and I found that helpful. Thank you.
You're
That's all I
welcome.
want.
Okay, thank you very much.
So next, we did provide a conceptual landscape plan for the last meeting. And Doug had asked us to provide an additional cross-section for the buffer between lot 4 and the Sinks family homes. And John Carter is here to summarize his plan and answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. For the record, my name is John Carter. I'm a registered landscape architect. My office is 960 Boston Neck Road there. Thank you. And so at this stage of the process, at the master plan stage, obviously it's a little early to be getting into any real specifics. So I'll give kind of a high level view of what the strategy is going forward from a landscape design point of view. You can see that the challenges is different parcels and they're isolated from each other. So we're going to have to find ways to make them all, give them sort of a separate identity, but also make them all feel like they're part of the same development. As you're aware, the site has considerable open space. And on that plan that's projected above you, the OS indicates all the open space parcel. The benefits of those is that provides visual buffering between the different development areas and also ways attenuation and so forth. We're gonna as we go forward, we're gonna work with the development team to try to integrate those into the neighborhoods by making passive recreation opportunities, paths, benches, things like that, as allowed within those areas. So they become both an asset and they're a buffer and an asset that they're able to be active in open space. And to follow up on that, as you're all aware, that the history of the site, it was an industrial site, gravel mining, type of stuff. And so we're going to be working with the design team, the engineers, DEM, obviously, in some areas, to remediate the areas that are presently neglected, abandoned, and are basically just trash collecting areas and dust holes and wind. And so we'll come up with techniques to stabilize vegetation, obviously trash and type of stuff will be removed. As far as the individual parcels, as I said, it's a little early to get into any of the details on that. What we will be doing until we get to a point where we actually have units, footprints, and so forth. But the view is that be using designing street trees, individual unit landscape, any parking areas, communal spaces, we have shade trees, and any of the other requirements of the ordinance in terms of buffering and landscape implementation. That's pretty much at this point a high level view of what our strategy is going forward. As I said, it's a little early to get into details, but we understand those are the things we're going to focus on and hopefully come back to you with a lot more information at the next phase of the project. Do you want to bring that up?
I think
Sure. So what we're talking about is there you go. Thank you. We were asked as part of the in the staff report to address the buffer multifamily area and the existing residential. So if you look down at the color picture, that shows the area that we are. There you go. Thank you. That cross section is drawn through that red arrow indicates where we kind of cut the cross section.
And if you look, can you just page to the upper part a little? Thank you. So on the right-hand side of that, there's, a building, you can see the building, and would be one of the proposed buildings. There's a landscaped area, sidewalk, with some parking, and, the access road. And then there's, we'll be planting trees per the ordinance, will require a certain amount of shade trees and so forth, depending on the number of parking spaces. The requirement, the ordinance requirement is a 40-foot landscape buffer. That's 40 feet from the property line, not from the adjacent house. Adjacent houses are certainly further back. There's presently existing vegetation in a lot of that area. This is a kind of typical plan, but we're gonna have to assess the vegetation. If the vegetation is not of any value to the buffer, then obviously we'll supplement it with more planting. If there's a thick vegetated buffer it's effective, then we will leave it. But there will be a 40-foot vegetated buffer adjacent to adjacent to the property line, adjacent residential. And the 40 feet is required by ordinance.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Anderson?
Just to follow up, the emphasis right here is on those older houses that are abutting it.
Yes.
And you just closed it out with comments regarding that. The open space that already exists is fantastic. We have that 40-foot buffer now. Some of it's thick, maybe not so good. You're going to improve on that. And again, I'm just saying the emphasis on this whole project would be probably those buffer lines that we really got to get right. You know, one way or another, a lot of evergreens and that what's left of the deer won't eat and go from there. That's just the emphasis. I just wanted to put it out there on record.
We understand and respect that. And, this is the one area where the development is closest to the adjacent property. And it's also a different use, multifamily versus residential. So it requires, if it's substantial, when the time comes, we'll assess it. It's to everybody's benefit, developer, people living there, to leave it in place.
And improve if possible.
And improve it, yeah, we'll assess it and fill in the blanks if need be.
Anyone else? So so 40 feet is the no cut buffer, right? And we're talking about the perimeter, the properties that front on King Street, that would basically be to the north of this project, Lydia Road, which is to the east of this project. And then as you circle around, and I think that's the area you're kind of focused on, which is the north side of where the lot 4, the apartment.
Correct.
So just to make sure I follow, it's a 40-foot no cut buffer. Will the entire 40 feet be vegetated?
It will, yes, either existing or addition.
So you won't be able to, so basically it'll provide a landscape screen.
It should, the goal would be to.
So the folks in the, don't look out their window and see your project, and the folks that are moving into this project don't look into all their backyards.
That's the intent.
Because I just wanted to clarify. If you go back, that picture right here, that's up there, shows the 40-foot no cut buffer, but it looks like about half of it is vegetated and the other half has the street trees and lawn.
If the language was no cut.
Yeah.
I didn't pick that up. That's common. We see that.
Yeah.
Then it would be no cut. And this is just, by the way, to promote this.
I asked the question because I don't want you to testify to one thing and then realize afterwards. So this is an opportunity to basically get it clarified for both our benefit. But the bottom line was, it's going to provide a visual screen between the two, whether it's 20 feet or 30 feet, there's not going to be any housing or impervious soil within the 40 feet. But you're going to make sure that there's plantings in there that provides adequate screening for the benefit of both sides of the property.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yep.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just if I may, what I heard Mr. Carter say is that when you say no cut, I heard you say that there are some plantings that might not be adequate. We'll talk to Doug McLean about that. But I mean, you might want to replace stuff.
Correct. That's why I emphasized on adequate screening so that both sides benefit. And let's not forget about the little bump out on King Street. If you remember, the property line over there's got some jog on it, so.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Anyone else on the board? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, since our last meeting, we met TRC again, and we had a separate traffic meeting with town staff and your peer review engineer. So James Cronin is here from Crossman to give a brief presentation of the traffic study and to respond to the sort of forward-looking comments of the peer reviewer. I think John Chung is here too. Oh, hi. So I think everybody's here to answer any questions you have.
Good evening, my name is James Cronin. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island, working for Crossman Engineering. I realized Paul Banner went through the study last month, so I'm not just going to make a few statements, and any detail you want to go into, I can answer questions about that. Study did looked at a total of 712 residential units in 2 locations. Parcels 2 and 3 have access to road with 362 duplex units. And parcel 4 has direct access to Honor Road, 350 apartments. One thing I want to point out, change in the study, we passed, I believe you have a redone sheets on page 20. The multifamily trip generation was a typo. That number included R350 plus an additional 400 that make it way for future traffic. So the number's been reduced from 278 during the morning peak to 130 and 293 during the afternoon peak to 132. So it's a lot less traffic. And these are the numbers we use for the analysis. Now, in the conclusion of the study, we found a proposed residential development project when I have a detrimental impact on basic roadways. One issue we did find, was mentioned in the report and discussed at the TRC meeting last week, was the intersection of Center New England Boulevard and Hopkins Hill Road. The TRC and the town realized there's going to be a problem there in the future, especially when they have Center New England Boulevard connected. Going to get a lot more traffic there. So they were looking at options for this location. A brand new signal will take anywhere from 6 to 9 months to design and construct. A temporary signal could be put in. We could reduce the 2 lanes coming up to Center New England Boulevard to 1 lane, which will slow the traffic down. Also give an option for the left turn lane at Mishnock Road, which would be helpful. We did just recently got our engineers peer review. Most of their comments talk about a future traffic study that we have agreed to do when the connection is put through. And he discussed doing Saturday counts, expanding more intersections. This study, we basically looked at the locations and the impact of Hopkins Hill and the impact on. Once that connection is through, it's going to change a lot of the traffic patterns around there. So we're looking at more locations. We agreed to do that for preliminary at that time. I can answer any questions, but I can go into any detail about the study.
Can I just add something about? So with regard to this traffic light, it's related, but not directly to this development, because obviously, you know, this has to go through a process, and you don't want this traffic light, perhaps, I'm gonna let the engineers figure that out, but it may be needed earlier, later. So I know that Doug is working with the receiver on that issue. It's not really part of this application, although at some point we need it, but we're not pulling building permits right now. So I just want to be clear that that's somewhere in the future. I just want to make sure we're transparent with the board.
Yeah, the 2004 master plan did call for traffic signal at that location at some point in the future.
So we got this trip generation, we entering and exiting. I'm sorry, it's just the one page and without going back to that report. What was this for? AM, PM? Is this for Hopkins Hill at the exit and entrance? Is this the one on Arnold Road? It's 201 entering and 142 leaving. I mean, it replaces table 1 on page 20. That's Scott. I just want to trip generation. The impact development estimates anticipated traffic to be generated. Calculate.
Yeah, the previous page, 20 that was in the original report, that high numbers for the moment. The numbers you have there, they recommend will be generating from the 350 apartments out to Arnold.
So it's all attributable to Arnold Road. And that was an easy adjustment because there's no other traffic mixed in. For example, for Hopkins Hill, you've already got traffic using that intersection today. Even though the road's not connected, and then you would be providing additional. So that's not part of what this correction is. That was what I wanted to clarify. Now, let's just go back to the signal, and you may or may not know. How far does the state jurisdiction run down Hopkins Hill Road? I know they own or manage the portion where GTEC once was. That was a fast track project in the 80s when they were going in over there. Is that intersection where DAI Restore is that goes into here, is that state or is that under the town's jurisdiction?
As far as I know, it's town.
So I think, was it called Mishnah? Is that the name of the street?
Is
Is that right?
Yeah, Mishnock is in that vicinity.
I heard that traffic meeting that the state goes all the way up to Mishnock and then stops. That's what I heard. Am I right?
I thought the state owned the 4-lane section. That's why I was asking.
So south of that is state, north of that. Right, John?
That's correct. I think the way that it's being described, but particularly to your question, the roadway at that intersection is a town roadway. So the Hopkins Hill, where it intersects with Center of New England, at that point of Hopkins Hill, that's a town roadway.
Okay, thank you. And as far as the signal goes, when it gets in, I mean, you've got to pull building permits. There's a build out. The signal may not be required right away. It'd be nice to have a study and do what's right. But my question was, who pays for it?
So that's something that we're working out with the receiver, because this obviously relates to the entire center of development. So we just want to keep you advised, but we are working with the planning department and all the town staff to figure that out. With your peer review.
Fair enough. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, sir.
Was the, I was looking for it, was the roundabout still in play on Arnold Road? Or,
So
we saw that.
up in the air, I think there's different opinions about roundabouts. So I that's gonna come at preliminary plan, what the appropriate treatment of Arnold Road is. It could be a 4-way, it could be a roundabout. It's something that has to be designed at preliminary.
Okay.
I think we put in, like, it won't be a light, but it could be a roundabout, and it might be 4-way. So we just don't know.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I just wanted, again, just to clarify, because, I kind of paid a little bit of attention to the project. And there's also still some uncertainty as to whether or not this entire development is going to dump on our road, or it would just be the apartment, because that road would have to.
Right, so.
And that will
roadway-
play into the fact of whether or not what you do at the Arnold Road intersection.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That roadway, where, again, we're trying to be transparent. It's a possibility, but we're not promising that.
Right, got it. That's what I wanted to point out, because if that's the case, you don't know what you're going to do with the intersection of Arnold Road. The trip generation is only going to be for the apartments.
Yeah, in the traffic study, we analyzed that intersection, on a road in the driveway, as a 4-way stop condition. There are delays that you lifting these out from both directions, but it's very small queue. Like, I think one car coming out of ours and less than one car coming out of Christmas.
Right, but if I understood you at the beginning, when we were talking about the trip generation correction, you did not take into account the connection to the other 300 and some odd units. It was just the apartments on lot 4 that you dealt with in terms of trip generation on Arnold Road.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you. Just wanted to get it on the record.
Through the chair, staff just wanted to make the comment that it is known and was conferred with our peer reviewer that if the Arnold Road intersection is not a roundabout or rotary, that it wouldn't have the warrants for a light, a signalized intersection. So just be aware of that. My suggestion is as the applicant goes into their design process for potential future stages, this is the appropriate time to give guidance. If the planning commission members have a strong feeling about how that intersection should be handled. And I would just also note, our peer reviewer is available if there are any questions on any aspects of the traffic. They're here and they can address any questions.
And similar to my last question, is Arnold Road, which I believe is possibly state-owned and town-maintained, who has jurisdiction over that location?
That's a good question. I don't know that piece of information offhand.
I assumed it was downtown.
I think it's down.
Yes. No, Arnold Road where this is coming.
Arnold Road is.
Yeah, I think so too, but I just wanted to make sure it wasn't gonna generate another approval from you.
No, that does not generate any.
That's town.
Right.
I don't have the final say on that.
Yeah, that's not, that's not right under review.
Just with the traffic study so far, there's a lot of what ifs. Until the Hopkins Hill Road end gets connected to Center New England Boulevard, it'd be very challenging to come up with accurate numbers, correct? Okay. The end of Center and New England Boulevard has not been connected yet. I was there this week. They're working on it. It's going to be very challenging to get accurate numbers until that's done, because we really don't know what the traffic's going to be there. And then the development is suggesting tying into Dante Drive in that area. That's going to make a difference too.
I believe the town had mentioned, somebody told them a couple of months. We think it'd be like a few more months after that. By the time we come back, hopefully it'll be open. We can do some traffic counts and we can get a better idea of what's going on out there. Because we won't have our units until a year or two down the road. So that definitely be connected before we have our units. It may require a traffic signal
At that time. Right. That's, I mean, there's a lot of what ifs for this because there's a lot of pieces that are not complete yet. That's it, red.
Does anyone have any questions for either the town's peer reviewer or the applicant in traffic? Okay, and just for clarification, if there was a motion and a vote tonight on the master plan, it would be subject to a final traffic approval preliminary. Exactly.
Of course.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So, because unlike a lot of.
It's unusual to have any traffic study at master plan, but we thought it was appropriate to give you some level of review. And again, it gives us guidance for preliminary.
Right. So if it triggers additional changes from this plan that's in front of us to benefit.
We understand.
Yep, great. Thank you.
Just want to address one thing in the prior staff report, and then updated this month. The staff report did note some potential zoning issues, and we provided a substantive response, which is in your packet, that I understand staff is satisfied with, such that those items do not need variances. And I think Doug agrees with that.
Yes, I concur. The only variance that we see that's required is the variance for parking that has been well documented and is in front of you tonight.
Okay, and then we have Nicole Riley again with us tonight. In addition to the waivers from the checklist requirements, we have discussed those two substantive waivers that we discussed at the last meeting, both for roadway width and for sidewalk with the planner. And again, I'll let him speak for himself, but we'd like to add those to the master plan consideration tonight. And we'd like, to talk with Nicole about, the variances, that well, not variances, it's one, for parking. We're asking for 1.5 spaces. So if Nicole, ready? So I'm not sure how much Nicole has to say, but I just want her up here to, weigh in on.
What a big fool.
Yeah, she got it. She's ready. So again, we've looked at this, and especially going into preliminary plan in terms of designing, the engineers designing the project appropriately. We think it's really important to have these waivers so Nicole and her team can properly design, all of these roadways. We've looked at other roadways, house condominiums, and we believe that a 24 width roadway works, is consistent with what's there now. And Nicole was able to put one sidewalk in, throughout this development, throughout most of this development. And again, so in the Highland condominiums, which I'm comparing this to, all the interior roads, all the really residential, there's Dante's the big, the main road. There's no sidewalks, but we're proposing one sidewalk, on one side of the road so people can walk and walk their dogs and their strollers. You wanna add to that?
Just for the record, Nicole Riley, Street Engineering, registered professional engineer. Would it be possible to go to sheet 6 of the PDF, the overall site plan? And maybe zoom in on the two pink. Thank you. So as Kelly mentioned, we came back with an exhibit earlier this week that showed sidewalks proposed on one side of the internal roads for parcels 2 and 3. And for the audience and for clarification, it's the sort of the pink blob in the middle. We are proposing pedestrian circulation 4-foot sidewalks. And we are going to have that throughout. Safe egress and as Kelly mentioned, walking and enjoying the neighborhood. That was something that was not part of our previous master plan submission. The commission and staff have requested it. We took a look at it and we have come back with proposed sidewalks on one side, so 4 or 5 wides.
Is there any locations that won't have a sidewalk on one side?
So that's actually an excellent question. As parcel 3 joins back into the center of New England Boulevard, that section is a little bit tight with wetlands. We do have a game plan for, having a slightly narrower sidewalk consideration there. We're going to have to work with the Department of Environmental Management on that. But I believe we can accommodate safe pedestrian access. If it just might not be a formal sidewalk, it might be integrated. So the bottom of the sheet towards the crossing. Yes, correct.
And is there a transition from the roundabout in the center heading towards Hopkins Hill Road? That must blend into the Highland over there.
Yeah, we took a look at some of the past approvals and some of the current approvals with the crossover work today along Center of New England Boulevard. And our goal is to tie into the existing sidewalks and also the proposed ones as part of the crossover work that's underway.
So they have a sidewalk in there that you can tie into? That's what I was kind of.
Yes.
To the west.
Yes. I'm not sure if it goes all the way to Hopkins, but I know it definitely is in that area. I'm assuming it goes all the way to Hopkins.
And will there be sidewalks on one side in the, on lot 4, the apartments as well?
We would pedestrian access in and out. It's probably more of a formal walkway from your car and less sidewalk feel, but we'll take a look at the final layout of the buildings to make sure folks can get where they need to safely off the driveways.
Okay, so I just want to go back. So, is the waivers for sidewalks on one side on lots?
So, I would take the position that sidewalks aren't really required for the multifamily buildings. What we are providing definitely is clear passage, and this is what your zoning ordinance requires, from the buildings to the parking areas.
I'll just defer to Doug. So sidewalks are not required at the apartment side, lot 4.
Now, this is a component of the project that does trigger some review of zoning compliance. And as you'll note in zoning compliance, there is a zoning requirement that the multifamily units be connected. Now, I think the applicant is asking for sidewalks on one side of the street as part of a waiver for the entire project, as long as there's a sidewalk that connects those apartments to the right of way of Arnold, then they're complying with zoning, in my opinion. So does that answer your question?
No, because I asked if the sidewalks were gonna be on one side of the road where the multifamily were on lot 4, and they said, no, that probably was not a requirement. Their requirement was that they just had safe pedestrian passage.
Then I would interpret that differently. I would say that, in my opinion, the sidewalks in the multifamily side really should be connected to the streets, and they should be connected ultimately to the right of way of Arnold. And in my opinion, I think that there's a component of that that's waiver, because here we are considering a waiver to reduce to one side. I think all of the streets on the multifamily side are still conditional on that same waiver. We're waiving one side of sidewalks, the other side would be an expectation of sidewalks. So there's two things happening here. The waiver wouldn't be in conflict with the zoning. The zoning of record for this does suggest that multifamily do need to have sidewalks. And in my opinion, I think it's appropriate that that sidewalk would lead out of the main street to Arnold Road.
But that assumes that the main street connecting the two developments gets built, which is still.
Well, and here we are. So it's fair to say, as everyone's looking at that plan on the screen behind you, there's a major roadway that connects these two separate portions of the development. The applicant has acknowledged that although that's shown on the plan, that was intended as an idea, they're now realizing that idea does not look likely at all based on their conversations with DEM. Those are preliminary conversations, but the applicant has conceded for the purposes of this master plan, we should assume that that roadway does not allow for regular vehicle traffic to cross back and forth. That's the way the traffic study is geared, and that's our understanding of the plan. So when we're talking about pedestrian connections, we're really just talking about these two separate sections of the project independently, not at all about that roadway that connects the two. Does that make sense?
Yes, so if they don't build the road, they don't have to have a pedestrian connection between the multifamily and these.
Correct. I would not mandate a pedestrian connection between the two separate sides of the project.
Do they have to have sidewalks in some form or fashion from where the apartment buildings are located out to tie into the sidewalks on Arnold Road?
In my opinion, I think that could be debated as a zoning interpretation. The zoning just says that sidewalk should exist for multifamilies. In my opinion, it makes sense that a sidewalk would connect to the right of way where there's also sidewalks.
Mr. Chairman, we agree, I think we agree, but so from Arnold Road and into the development itself on lot 4, we agree that we'll provide a sidewalk at least on one side, okay? With regard to the interior, Nicole is telling me you can probably make one sidewalk work. I mean, I'd like to keep the discussion open with Doug, because what we're trying to provide is safe pedestrian movement. If you could grant us the waiver on lot 4, and if we have to come back for something else, we will, but Nicole believes that we can fit one sidewalk on lot 4 as well. So I think that covers it.
That I'm in agreement that if they're giving us one sidewalk.
So the waiver would be one, that's why I was trying to clarify. If we're gonna give a waiver on the project, I just wanted to make sure the intent was they were gonna be able to provide it. However, again, if things change preliminary, you wanna come back and say, hey, we weren't able to adhere to that one stipulation.
Yes, and if the interpretation changes, because I don't think we're totally on the same page, but we're pretty close.
Got it. Anything else?
Any other questions on that? So at this point, we're just gonna talk about the zoning variance requested for 1.5 cars.
Are you just gonna, again, just for the record, 24-foot roadway width throughout, we on the interior roads. And again, that assumes that there's not gonna be a connection between the two.
Yes.
Because if that ends up being a main thoroughfare.
That might need to be wider. You'll have to revisit that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just something for clarification, as shown, we do have, and Mr. Clunian, I think this is what you're referring to, some of the main roads as connected are showing as 30 right now. For instance, like where the previously proposed connector road from 4 to 3, that main road in pink is a 30. And we can work with staff, but so that one is in excess, but the rest of the 24 is in turn.
You're gonna go back to 24 because
Most
there's no
likely.
connection, it's
Correct.
not a new road anymore.
Correct.
That's what I meant.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
And then finally, Mr. Chairman, on the zoning variance, the staff provided their recommendations, which support all of the standards for a dimensional variance. So I'm just going to summarize them. And then for the record, I'm just going to ask Nicole if he agrees with the staff findings, really just for the record. So again, this is for the 1.5 parking spaces only on lot 4. And the first standard is that the hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or structure and not to the general character of the surrounding area, and is not due to a physical or economic instability of the applicant, except, well, that it doesn't apply. So, the staff report says that essentially, because of certain wetland features that impact how the buildings, roadways, and surface parking layout, we meet that standard. Do you agree with that, Nicole?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. And then the second standard is that we didn't create our own hardship. And the staff report says that, relying on Nicole's letter to you, dated September 11th, with calculations that support, she provided you with a letter that supports some research, those calculations, it would exceed development's actual parking needs. And we also understand from the staff report that Park Corporation agrees with this analysis. So do you agree with that analysis, Nicole?
Yes, I do.
And then finally, the requested variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan. The staff made several comments about that. First of all, as you know, the consent judgments that have been entered by the court supersede certain zoning requirements, such that the multifamily use is allowed throughout and at pretty much any density. Multifamily residential properties provide a comparatively lower intensity buffer between the single-family residential neighborhood to the north and the commercial properties within the center of New England to the south. Accordingly, the subject parcel will likely generate less traffic and parking demand with the multifamily use than it might otherwise have generated if the use were commercial. Finally, as written, the zoning code applies to a blanket minimum parking standard for single, 2 families, 3 families, 4 families, where we have told you at the last meeting that this is going to be a combination of 1-bed studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, all likely requiring less parking. And again, Park Corporation has agreed with this analysis. So Nicole, do you also agree with that analysis?
Yes, we do.
And then finally, as you know, Mr. Chairman, the final standard for granting a variance is that the hardship suffered by the owner of the property, if it's not granted, amounts to more than a mere inconvenience. And the staff has said that viewed in light of both the natural constraints imposed by the wetlands and stormwater retention space, the report requires to reduce the number of required parking spaces appears to be minimal. Again, we would rely on the analysis that Nicole did for actual parking demands. And I believe this also says, nope, this one doesn't say about park. Do you agree with this statement?
Yes, I do.
And finally, that the staff did recommend approval of the 1.5 parking spaces. So with that, we've put the standard on the record. If you have any questions about this, please be happy to take those.
Just quick, so it's 1.5 parking spaces per unit, and are those just surface spaces, or does that include some that might be integral to the building?
So I do not want to commit to that design yet. That's why we're asking for the 1.5.
So the 1.5 is surface only,
maybe, if we can fit some under, we will.
But it would still be 1.5.
Correct.
Inclusive of anything that you fit on. That's what I wanted.
For the site, yes.
All right. All right, one thing we'll be looking for. They're gonna go with the 1.5 spaces, and then there's gonna have to be strict parking regulations, because I don't wanna find out that it's not adequate, and then there's people parked all over, blocking fire lines and things.
Do you mean like numbered parking spaces?
No. I'm just saying, like, if you show up on a Friday night and there's so many cars in there because people have visitors that you can't get a fire truck in the access road. You know what I'm saying? For the health and safety, I just want to make sure that it's adequate.
Yes.
I mean, you just can't tell.
Yeah.
They're just numbered similarly. And I agree with the report and findings, but sometimes, you know, you just don't know what the goings on are gonna be. You
Yeah.
don't know what the housing situation is gonna be. You could end up with, you know, 2 or
No,
3
no.
adults in different units over there, and they've all got a vehicle, and next thing you know, you're way over the 1.5. We just want to make sure that doesn't end up being the
Yeah.
town's problem down there.
We're certainly relying on experiential data. And I would be relying on the fact that a third of these are studios. I mean, that's clearly gonna be one person. You'd think.
My son had a 780 square foot studio. And as soon as he got married, there were 2 cars there.
In what city? Oh, geez, okay. Anyway,
It doesn't make any difference. The housing is so tight, and I just mean that constructively.
yeah.
It just never ceases to amaze me.
But I also have experience with younger people that are couples sharing one vehicle because it's so expensive.
Listen, we had 2 developments in town. One was Anthony Mill, and it's the same deal. They said they built apartments all over. They only needed 1.5, and it seems to work out well.
Yeah.
The Harris Mill, same developer. They were parked all over. They were parked in the lots across the street. They had to put up signs.
Yeah,
People left, they come back, there was no parking spaces for them to park in. So I've seen it, again, it depends on, you know, how many people decide they want one in a particular unit and who they're renting to, so.
Yep, I can't argue with that.
Fair enough.
So at this point, Mr. Chairman, I think that we have presented our full application, our request for both the waivers and the variances. And if you have any outstanding questions, any one of us would be happy to answer.
In a moment, I'm gonna hearing, which we've already had, we're continuing the public hearing from the last 2 meetings, but before I do that, does anyone on the board have any questions for Nicole regarding the things that we just talked about, the parking or the waivers on the roadway with the sidewalks? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I do, and it's just a combination of statement. I guess a question. Because my Homer Simpson math is taking over, but I'm making sure that you put together the study on the 1.5, and then our staff reviewed it, if not did their own and agreed, and then the third party agreed that 1.5 was.
Right.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah, no, I get it. And then as far as Homer Simpson thought, so if it's gonna be 1.5, clearly the driveway is gonna handle only one car specifically.
Can you repeat that?
No, is the driveway gonna handle the one car? Or there's, I guess, the parking spaces?
Yeah, so the variance is only for lot 4.
Correct, okay.
2 spaces for lot 3.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is, how many units are there? How many apartment units? 300?
362.
Right, so you're allowing 362 plus half of that, and that's how many spots are gonna be available. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that. I pictured a lot of half cars driving around.
No, we can't.
Smart.
Smart cars.
So we'll take a seat and
Okay.
back to that question.
All right. That said, I'd like to continue. I have to reopen public hearing. You're still open from the last time.
It's technically open, but yeah, you can use this moment to call for public comment as part of the public hearing.
Okay, so on this application for Center New England, before I call folks up if they would like to comment or have questions, I just want to remind everyone, we already had 2 sessions of public hearing on this. I would just ask you, try to keep your comments brief, if it's redundant, or you want to echo what someone else said, just do that in the interest of time. We have another public hearing that immediately follows this one. And that said, is there anyone in the audience that either has a question or would like to comment on this application at Center New England, which includes the area in pink, off of Center New England Boulevard, or the, proposed multifamily units off Arnold Road.
And through the chair, if I may just add, what would help us quite a bit if there are comments on this project, we want to be efficient. We know some people are actually here for another project after this. Please, come up to the front row seat. If you know you would like to comment, wait there because we don't want a lot of time spent, walking back and forth from the mic. So if you'd like to comment on this project, we welcome you to. Please indicate so by coming up to the front seat. And if you're here at the front seat, you can go ahead and begin your comment. Thank you.
Okay, sir, so you can go first. You got to put your name and, address for the record.
Jason Nunes, Jason Nunes, 4 Road. This is on.
Yeah. You just might have to.
I live off the end of Harrington Road, on View Road, and I'm right on the water, so I'm on lakefront taxpayer. And if you look at that map, you're gonna have people from them multifamily houses trying to go to the lake. How is that gonna impact my neighborhood? I'm not asking for answers or anything today. That's just one topic. Two, I don't believe that the 1.5 is even feasible, because if they're multifamily, some of them are 2-bedroom, you could have the potential of 4 cars in one unit. Another topic I'd like to touch on is the existing property right now. There's a lot of like wetlands and DEM points. My water table is 3 feet because I'm right on the water. When you start putting blacktop and rooftops, all that land, where do you think this water is going to go? Has that been taken into account as far as drainage? I don't want to touch that.
I'm not. The applicant, first of all, is still at master plan approval, but they have to go to DEM and get a stormwater permit and show how they're going to collect all of the water runoff on their own property, either with detention basins or another means.
Okay.
That's a requirement.
The traffic study as far as on the road, was that done during school session, or was that just done on a Tuesday afternoon? That's my thing, because I live off Arnold Road. I know the way traffic is on it. And you put an impact of them to that amount of units, even if you're gonna go out to Hopkins Hill Road, it's gonna be devastating. Bad enough as it is now. I just don't see it, and I'm definitely against this project completely. So that's about all I have. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but if you look at the size of those lots all around that abutting property, and look at the amount of dwellings that you're putting in the same square area, that's ridiculous. I think that's totally ridiculous. They need to downsize that drastically. Are we trying to be a sanctuary town?
I do have to ask you one question. Were you here at the first 2
No,
meetings?
I just found out about 2 weeks ago.
Because there's a lot of backstory on how they're automatically approved for those that grandfathered in from, court decree from back when this, Nick Cambio started this development.
That amount of money?
1997. Yeah, and it's consistent with the, adjacent, development on the highlands.
That.
Yes, sir.
Folks, Edward Trudino, Pembroke Lane in Coventry. Tudino. My questions are sure. It's 210 Twin Brook Lane, of course, in Coventry. Thank you. My questions are in regards to the financial aspect of this, and they have been debated fully at prior meetings. I did not attend those prior to that you mentioned a moment ago. Particularly around just using some high-level student to household ratios that we currently have in Coventry. My understanding is we have roughly 4,500 students, K-12, roughly 15,000 households, or about a 30% student to household ratio, my understanding. I would anticipate roughly the same sort of ratio, particularly given with the multi-families and not the studios necessarily. But you could certainly have a student with a parent in a studio. But if you put those aside, still around that 30% ratio. So I recognize the gentleman spoke a little earlier about a 50 student estimate as a result of these additional housing units, which feels a little too low. And if I just use the quick math of that 30% ratio, I would anticipate roughly 150 students from roughly 500 dwellings, as opposed to just 50 students, which would translate to a much higher benefit in impact to our school systems. So I'd like that question number one. I'm not sure if that's been addressed in prior meetings. Folks have covered that.
And incidentally, the way we work these is you can continue to ask questions and then the applicant may come back with their expert to respond.
Okay, sounds good. So that's the financial aspect, and the other component would be in the roadway system. From personal experience, coming up on a road and hitting the turnpike, that gets pretty backed up in the mornings with the red light and such. And I can just imagine with, 500 units, or roughly 700 to 1,000 additional cars. Unless they're going to become a 3-lane road in both directions, which is just going to become a bottleneck anyway. Of course, once you hit Union Turnpike, I'm not confident that the traffic planning is going to really be accommodated, particularly in the rush hour time periods of morning and evening, let alone school bus additional activity. So those are the two items I wanted to mention for.
Yep, and I'll just make one addition to that. In the Arnold Road intersection, again, remember, we're not sure if there's going to be a connection there, so we have the apartments coming out to Arnold Road. But the other thing is, and again, I don't know how many of these meetings you come to, but there are 2 or 3 other applications with literally hundreds of units off of London Turnpike, just towards the West Warwick side. And then there's the Crompton Meadows just built down on Crompton Road near CVS. So we've I think members on the board have raised the same issue. They're not able to complete a comprehensive traffic study of how this is all going to be flushed out, because right now the numbers are skewed with Center and New England only having one entrance. The second one is currently being built and they're hoping that'll be completed by February of next year. And they're going to do another traffic study and then come back to us when they come back for preliminary. This is just the first of 3 approvals that they need. And each time they're going to be refining their plans and adding more detail. It wouldn't make sense for them to completely design the entire project and spend all that money and then find out it got denied at the first level. So this is just master plan. They'll be back for a preliminary. I can't say when, but at least a couple of months ago.
That works. We'll take that next step, and the fiscal question still stands in for me.
Sure. And if they want to respond to the traffic question, they can confirm some of what I just said or add to it. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
My name is Peter Garofalo. 1 Greg Court. 2 things. Number one, 1.5 cars. I've been to a lot of different apartment complexes where it has been absolutely ridiculous trying to park there with only having 1.5 cars, even with two parking spaces per. Not saying this won't work, I'm saying it needs to be really looked at a little stronger than it has been. Excuse me. The other thing is, now the center of New England Boulevard has been paved at the New London area side, and half of it's been paved on Hopkins Hill side. It's become a drag strip. I don't know if anybody's taken a ride or if any people that live in Village Green have said anything. But there needs to be something done by the owners of that road, because they're all private roads now, to keep the speed down. Same thing with the amount of trucks that are going to be coming in from both sides now, because of the difficult area it is to get in and out of Center New England off of London Turnpike. So those are things that's important. Whether they have to put speed bumps in, or they have to put it can't be enforced by the town because the town doesn't own it. But it's gotta be some kind of thing. I don't know if you've driven it lately since it's been repaved. It's like a,
Unfortunately, the applicant's not responsible for that road either, and neither are we.
well, the receiver is. Correct.
Yeah, he's not.
Well, maybe he needs.
Well, I'm just saying, that's more something that you should maybe bring up to the town council.
Okay.
At a town meeting.
Okay.
Just, but I echo your concerns. I've seen it, it's been on social media and it's fair. And I just want to bring one other thing, Doug, the parking, I know they kind of piggyback this planning commission, but that's a zoning issue, right? Are they going to the zoning board for that?
No, this is, the parking relief is being reviewed through a process called Unified Development Review, in which this commission actually votes on both the variance and the project. And I'd only suggest that the applicant has provided a foundation of information, studies that show that it's the mix of bedrooms in there, the fact that it's a third studio, a third one bedroom, and a third two bedroom. That provides, based on their study and expertise, the foundation that 1.5 is enough. Staff reviewed it as well as our peer reviewers. So we think there's a good foundation of information on that.
And those are rentals that are going to be managed by a private company, not the town. Those aren't going to be owned units as far as we know.
That's my understanding, is that they are going to be rentals. The applicant can speak to that if they think otherwise, but my understanding is rentals.
Okay, thank you.
And one more thing was about the fact that if these new units that are in the pink are not being connected to Arnold Road, now that traffic comes to Central New England Boulevard, also comes across to Dante Boulevard, which dumps into Central New England. And with the amount of curvature to the new road that's being built there, I think it's gonna be very dangerous if they don't have something, whether another roundabout or whatever it may be. I live right there.
Yeah, and they can go to Hopkins Hill as well.
Yeah.
From two ways.
Right.
Okay.
But that's where, that's going to dump out into Stephanie Drive, Angelina, which is going to be built across the other side there. So I mean, you're looking at a substantial amount of traffic. And I believe that they need to design this correctly before they have a problem. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Evening. Paul Heim, I live at 1101 Village Street Circle. I've been there for over 10 years. I do want to give credit, I believe, to Cross Management in regards to paving the road, the center of New England Road on our side. And in regards to the traffic lights that they built, they're accessible for one problem. When you go in, there's what is it? The restaurants off to the side on the left. If you go in, and can't think of it right at the what? Cracker Barrel. They have a turn. Cars can go stop and let the other two lanes be open to go down. And I think that's a great idea, what they did. But if you go down another 3 blocks where there is actually stop, they did not do that. So when the people want to go to your two main business, tire company, as well as there's a liquor store, there's confusion. They should think seriously about making sure that people go off to the side, so waiting for the light turn green, so they can go in and they'll be okay. I've actually seen where a person's driver went down, off to the side. Instead of going to the correct way of cutting in, he went in, he would have caused an accident because he thought, well, that road for the tire company, Goodyear, or not Goodyear, whatever. was for going in and going out, which is not correct. So there's a future possibility of accidents. And I don't know, I don't understand why that light will get us to the left. It's not operating. I got a plastic bag about it. I'd like to know what Dr. Grossman's thinking about. I hope that they consider, they redesign the line in regards to where these companies are. They need to have some support in regards to traffic control. And that is my question, or answer, or comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator. Leonidas Raptakis, Leonidas, Raptakis, Raptakis, 2088 News Next Hill Road. My concerns again, I want to bring up the fact that we didn't hear anything tonight about the issue with Kent County Water. As you know, Kent County Water was established in 1946 by the General Assembly, and Coventry had an additional member to the former one member that we had, making it two. So my issue here is that, again, I brought it up last time. What is the concerns of Kent County Water providing adequate water pressure? And also the issue for the town is the sewer capacity. Now, Representative Serpa and I, she is here with us this evening. Many times we've had in the past businesses or homes trying to tie into Kent County Water. And there was always an issue. Now we have 712 units tying in to Kent County Water. And I'm not sure if that is going to be presented to you, the planning board, as a report by the developer or a study commission by Kent County Water to address if there are concerns or whether there's going to be adequate water pressure. That again, it's goes on to public safety, fire hydrant pressure. So all these issues should be brought forward to you as the planning commission, and I have heard nothing tonight addressing any of these. As we know, many developments that are built in our community, and we probably have on the board over 1,000 units being proposed in this community, and water pressure always is a concern to all of us. Lastly, I just want to address the Hopkins Hill exit. Now, as you and I know, once that exit is constructed, there's going to be probably a lot of traffic. Number one, from West Greenwich side, you have quite a few condos that are built on the West Greenwich side that are abutted between Route 95 and the Boulevard. I believe that a lot of that traffic is not going to make the right turn to go up to the traffic signal of New London Turnpike and try to get onto 95, where they probably can jump on exit 19 a lot easier. A lot of the traffic from Walmart, maybe BJ's, maybe Home Depot. Some people that do travel south, point south in Coventry or West Greenwich or Exeter, are definitely going to use the exit through Hopkins Hill. So that's something that also you should maybe consider on the traffic study. How much volume of traffic will be coming through, as Mr. Garofalo had addressed earlier, through that neighborhood, through Dante, and I believe it's the other boulevard. So those are just something that I want to bring up to you as the planning commission to indulge in that decision to make sure we have the information. The other issue I heard at the beginning, I'm not sure, I just want to correct myself also. There was a $4.8 million, I believe, was that the income through property tax, or was that from the property tax? Okay. Because again, if you look at the ratio, 50 students, if we took 50 students times 14,000, which is probably an estimate of what it costs to educate somebody in Coventry Public Schools, comes out to around $700,000. On the low ball, the high end would be 15,000. So it would be 750,000 per year per 50 students. So if it's 150 students, it would be probably about $2.250 million to educate those students. So I just want to make sure also that there's enough income through the property tax to sustain not only the education level, but also public safety. And thank you very much. Just one, Doug, on the King County, That's at preliminary, but they actually have to submit an actual approval. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah, Kent County, to my knowledge, I haven't heard that Kent County has any concerns with providing water access here, but it is a requirement of the applicant to demonstrate that Kent County Water will provide a letter, and those typically do come at later stages.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Carl Kerner, I live at 38 Elias Lane. I live in the Highlands, which is going to be adjacent to the new construction being proposed. Last meeting, I brought up concern about the traffic of the construction equipment going in and out of that development. We have new road that's just been put into our development, and concerned we don't want any large construction equipment traveling on that road. So I was wondering, how are they going to be entering and exiting that new development? The other question I have is talk about traffic study. Traffic study is going to be tremendously increased in our development because we have 2 lanes dumping directly into our development, leading to some traffic circles in there. There's no signs around the traffic circle to say who yields and who doesn't yield. I'm sure that people in the traffic circle have a right of way, but nothing indicates that. We got some new people coming in or out of that development. They may not know that. So there's going to be a lot of potential accidents. Secondary roads leading from that development. The secondary roads have no sidewalks on them. So with the increased traffic coming in and out of that development now, people walking on that road, there's going to be a concern of those residents get hit by potential traffic. So those are some areas that needs to be addressed. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody? Yes, sir.
Jerry Knockouts, 21 Beach Street, Coventry. You're welcome. Good evening, guys. You all know what section is 4321, but not everybody out there does. Honestly, even with glasses on, I can't tell. It would be really nice. Oh, I'm sorry. It would be really nice if those numbers were bigger, so people could tell you're talking about section 1, section 2. I'm out there and I'm very familiar with this, yet I'm still like, which one are we talking about right now?
Or is the apartments off Arnold Road?
I know. I'm not sure everybody else out there. So that's number 1. Number 2, I hear the 1.5 parking spaces. I understand that, makes total sense that globally, that probably works. But what happens when you have a section that maybe is having a party and those spots are all taken? And it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, the 1.5 spaces is only at the apartments on 4.
That's the section I'm talking about. Okay. That's the section I'm talking about. And so I look at it and I say, wow, a great way for a battle to start. Because you're, like other people have said, they're not gonna find a parking space. And I do get it globally. You're right, 1.5 spaces probably works all the time. But not locally, meaning locally at a particular building. So it's something for sure to think about. I am very concerned as a Coyote member of how drainage is going to work. No conversation on that tonight. I'm assuming we're going to get another shot at this where we can talk about drainage and how that area is going to dump into Lake Coyote. Third and last is Stewart. Boy, you know, I live in a sensitive area environmentally. And we have been working hard to get sewers for a long time. I don't want to tell you how long. I'm assuming these are all sewers.
Yes.
So are we going to get a Coyote sewer at the same time? Are we going to bring this developer in so you can make us part of the deal? I have to assume it's going to go up to the intersection with Arnold Road and New London Turnpike, where they have a main.
Can anyone answer that question?
Sewers, already exist on the site, along Center of New England. The applicant's responsibility will be to tie into the sewers that exist, in Center of New England Boulevard. Those then go to New London and it goes up New London towards Tyoke. That's the direction of the existing sewers here.
So Doug, can be again, excuse my ignorance, I cannot tell what you're talking about. Like, are you pointing to the area of the condos going up through the center of New England where Home Depot is and where Walmart is and those stores and tying into their sewer line?
Yes.
So nothing will be going on.
Correct.
That answer. For me, that answer.
I thought the
Sorry.
town put sewers partially down Arnold Road, didn't they?
Say again?
Doesn't the town have a sewer line on Arnold Road?
Right. There's supposed to be a pump station put in 5 or 10 years ago. So I'll leave you with those as my questions. But we will be able to talk about drainage in the future.
I just want to confirm, that's a preliminary too, right, Doug? The engineering calculations for drainage and all.
Correct.
Yep. So
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
Thanks, you too. Anybody else? Application for Center New England, yes, sir.
Jeff Klein, 18 Lynn Drive. I may have misheard. I just heard the discussion of sidewalks being on one side of the road, but not connecting to Center New England Boulevard. That seems to be an access point that might be beneficial to the homeowners or home renters. Is that true that they're not going to connect sidewalk to?
No, they're going to put the sidewalk on one side.
But it was interior to the development.
And then there would be a southeast which connects to Center New England.
Okay.
Where they can't put sidewalks is in the existing development of the Highlands, Dante Boulevard. That's all privately owned in there. Their roads are gonna connect, but they can't build sidewalks.
Okay, I thought I heard the ambulance say that they weren't connected to the center. It's side.
No, they weren't connecting from the apartment houses over to the other side of the project where the individual units are through that wetland area.
At this.
Right.
That road is up in the air right now. They're not sure if they're gonna connect the apartments, which are off Arnold Road, to the main development in Pink.
Okay.
But they are gonna provide some type of a pedestrian, facilities for pedestrian use at the apartments to get them out to Arnold Road. And then everything on the interior where the homes and new interior roadways are built. That's the area. in Pink. Those are gonna all have sidewalks on one side, every road in there, including that little stuff. There'll be some to Center and England at the bottom. That's the only point. It's directly to Center New England. Everything else goes out to Hopkins Hill through either Dante Boulevard or or an existing development.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak or has a question on this particular application at Center and New England? Hearing none on the board. And does the applicant want to respond to any of these questions? I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone on Zoom, Cody? Anyone on Zoom that has a question or a comment on this application in Center New England? If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand. Anyone? Okay. Cody said there's none. Sure, if we could come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to acknowledge all the comments. We respect the comments and questions from neighbors. I think you answered a lot of the comments, and what I would just do is reiterate that this is a conceptual plan. We will be back with preliminary. So what I heard a lot of was about drainage and traffic. Those future studies will provide mitigation measures for particularly traffic where necessary. As you said, Mr. Chairman, we cannot create runoff off of our property. It will be approved by DEM. That all comes at the preliminary plan stage. You know, we are not done. There's two more stages, preliminary and final. With regard to the parking, I would just say that's based on experiential data. We had an expert testify, we have staff support, and we also have your peer reviewer supporting the parking variance. And then finally, similarly, I should say, relating to school-age children, you heard our expert say that he was conservative in his estimate, using more recent data. So he went all the way up to 10 students per 100 units. These are all experts that have testified, and there's more work to be done. So unless you have any questions or I want to hear from any of the experts, we continue to work on this project, and we will be back with a lot more engineering and information as we further design the project.
Not to belabor, but just one point on Mr. Lombardo's report with the 10 students. It also is a factor, and again, I just want to make sure these are primarily 2-bedroom units in the condominium style homes. And then you've got apartments that are studios and 1-bedrooms, and that's the numbers that he relied on to come up with the 50 students, as opposed to a regular conventional residential subdivision.
Yeah.
With 700 units.
Yes.
Okay. And the only other item that I'm kind of hoping that, because gentleman raised it twice, is there any way that we could stipulate that, or can the developer acknowledge that construction equipment access trucks will only come through center of New England and the major arteries and not going through the highway?
I think what we'd like to do is present you with that information of what they plan to do at preliminary. But yeah, I mean, we don't intend to.
Yeah, that's generally the practice that's done, but I didn't want to speak to you when you came up.
Right, and I missed that, I apologize, but absolutely a preliminary plan, we'll have things like that to talk about.
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
Anyone else from the board have any questions for the applicant, the attorney, any of the experts?
I don't know if it's a question so much for the applicant. It's just at prior meetings, there was some passing comments about the percentage of the affordable units. So I just wanted to bring that forward if there was any consideration for additional units. Not to open up a can of worms, but there were passing comments. I just didn't want to leave it alone, and not.
I'm in this
discuss
acting
it all.
chairman position tonight, and quite honestly, I'm glad you brought it up because it kind of slipped my mind. There is an affordable component. No, I think it was the consensus, even in the last meeting, people kept saying, I'd like to see more affordable. I'd like to see more affordable. I don't know what the number is. We've got, let's see, what do we got? We got two waivers and a uniform. I don't.
I mean, I would just suggest that, we've said this before. My client bought this property knowing that LMI units are not only not required, but prohibited. And he wants to work with the town to provide you with some level of LMI units. So what he's done is he's proposed to keep you at status quo with the 10%. And then add a bump of 5%. I think that's incredibly generous. So I mean, the density is what it is. It's just we're not getting extra density.
Where is that right? Because I know that we're going to be discussions and someone was going to go back to the judge and see if he was going to allow the LMI because it wasn't, because it still requires approval, right? Because at this point, right.
Conditioned on approval by the court. But I mean, you can't. I think we can get to that, right? So I just, it does have to be conditioned on court approval though, because the court doesn't allow it right now.
Right, so what I was trying to figure out is if we were to stipulate a LMI in the approval tonight, in the master plan approval, where would that lie?
I would say it has to be conditioned on court approval. It has to be.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at my planning director and solicitor. See,
Here's my suggestion on this item. I think that there should be a discussion amongst the board members on a percentage number that you're seeking. I think there should be discussion with the applicant about that. This is a unique situation. We do have an outside entity that, essentially is looking over this project. That there is a current consent agreement in place that we shall not require affordable housing. I think the applicant understands that the board and the town sees value in this, and they've offered it. It's a non-required offer that the applicant has made. Speaking with the solicitor tonight, his suggestion is that there should be consensus on this. That the condition that we have, which is condition number 2 on your decision, it currently reads the applicant shall provide a percentage of units to be deemed restricted, low, moderate income, blah, 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 based on consensus of the planning commission. The solicitor is suggesting that we begin that condition with by agreement, because again, we want to be thoughtful. We're not requiring this above and beyond what's being offered. The choices in front of you is if the commission is seeking a certain percentage of affordable housing, if the applicant isn't conceding, then your other option is to vote to continue or to vote to deny the project. You shouldn't vote to add a condition of approval on affordable housing that the applicant hasn't agreed with in some sort of, verbal consensus tonight. We don't want to get into a situation where we're requiring a certain amount of percentage that the applicant hasn't agreed to, because that might fly in the face of this consent agreement document of which this project is relying upon. Thus far, the applicant has agreed to give us 15%, and I think that there's a conversation to be had where it could go from there. But if we get to it, I want there to be agreement on that so that the condition can read by agreement with the parties, that there is a condition for certain. We can wordsmith the condition later on if we need to ensure that there's some discussion of the role of the state court. But to be honest, we do want a certain percentage of this. The applicant's intent is that they can provide it. I don't think we see that the court that would oversee this would outrule it. But we do want to provide some condition in here that provides some assurance that what's being offered today, they can stick to.
So if I understood you correctly, you wanted the finding of fact on that particular topic to just simply say by agreement.
The word choice I would use is condition of approval number 2. It can remain as it is for right now. The only word I would add is by agreement before the whole start of it. By agreement, the applicant shall provide a percentage of, and then when we get to a certain number that this commission is interested in, that the applicant has indicated agreement with, then we will indicate a specific number in that condition number 2. If we can't get there and the commission doesn't feel comfortable with the project without that agreement being in place, your options are to vote to continue or to vote to deny the project.
So we can vote tonight.
You can vote
the plan. We can put the word by agreement. Should we stipulate something other than that, and they don't agree, and it gets challenged, it goes to the court, they throw our decision right out. Is that what you're basically
I think
saying? That's exactly right. Okay, I got it.
You're saying stipulation, a condition is a one side, stipulation is an agreement.
Okay.
If the applicant is agreeing to 15%, I'm comfortable with you putting that in. If the applicant says no, and you decide to make condition number 2 18%, that's going to be reversible and violating. So if you don't like the project, vote no. If you like the project and you're happy with 15% by agreement, vote yes. If you'd like more and they don't want to give it, I hate to say it, but you really don't have a choice. You can't make that condition a condition. It has to be a stipulation, meaning it's got to be an agreement.
So as of tonight, so if we put by agreement, 15 is the floor if they agree to it. But would it ever go up if
they would agree?
This would be,
can it be a conversation later?
it could be a conversation I suggest you engage in. And in fact, I think your 2 real choices are reach a number that the board is interested in, that the applicant agrees to, and then make that specific number known as part of the decision and vote. If you don't reach to that agreement and the board is not satisfied then your other choice is to vote to continue. And if this board is indicating that it's not satisfied with that number, then staff can prepare perhaps alternative analysis on the issue and findings as part of a future decision. Now, that's something that can be discussed, but I think where you're headed is that it's a vote to approve tonight if you can get consensus on that number, or it's a vote to continue and to discuss the matter further at another meeting.
Okay, but either way, the discussion needs to be had.
I would recommend that we have there's no version of this where I think we kick off the affordable housing discussion to preliminary plan. I think we have the discussion about affordable housing now as part of this master plan decision.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Our solicitor just advised us that 15% would be. Yeah.
That's what. They're offering 15. What we're getting at is we can either negotiate, accept the 15, negotiate a higher number tonight, or continue it and continue to try to negotiate, and if not, come back and still accept some number.
But I believe Mr. Igliozzi said if we went above that and they challenged it, we could lose that.
Right, but
If they don't agree.
If they don't agree.
right,
That's correct.
but we can have a discussion.
Yeah.
So we can try to get them to agree to a higher number, and if they don't, we can continue the application, continue those discussions.
Try to go.
But once you say by agreement 15, it's gonna come, they're not gonna come up. So it's either 15, negotiate a number, or continue. So at that point, I guess, this has come up. I believe several members, including the chairman who's not here tonight, kept saying, I'd like to see more affordable, I'd like to see affordable. And I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but I'm kind of interested and see what the thoughts are with regard to the 15% that's on.
I'd like to see it come up.
Burke?
I concur with that. I get it up, I would like to see it come up as well.
All right, so I think 15% is a generous start, but I think it's just at a starting point. What I'd really like to know, or what I'm a little more interested in, is what's the phasing of the project? Is this low income affordable income going to come in at the beginning of the project, the end of the project? Where is it phased to come into reality?
So what I advise my client is that typically it would be either before or during the construction of the market rate units, or some other agreement where we assure you, whether it's a bond or something like that, that it will happen. But it would be, you would be assured that 15% would happen.
And if I could just add to that, just confirm, all of the affordable units that we're offering are in the apartments, none in the other.
Right, but it would still consider 15%.
No, I understand. I just wanted to know, he asked about phasing and so forth. I wanted him to realize they're all the renters that are in there, and God knows we need
At this
affordable rental. Yes. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, so the 15% is very generous and very much appreciated. We got some waivers on the table, so it's a give and a take. I just feel with that, I would personally be negligent and wouldn't do justice to the town and our quota if I didn't ask for more. Because we've been hearing it. I've been hearing it for almost 10 years now. And, I do agree we should ask for more. Much appreciated what you guys have done. I think you could find a higher number.
Mr. Smith.
I think it's a beautiful project and it has a lot of wins to it. But the affordable, I'd like to see a little more affordable in it. 15% is good. It's generous to come forward with that. I think you have a little wiggle room as one. And like Mr. Price said, when is that going to be done in the project? It's going to wait till the end. Because I believe part of the affordable, and Doug could correct me on this, instead of being all in one area or a separate neighborhood, it's supposed to be kind of mixed throughout a development.
I'm glad you brought that up, and this is a good point to clarify for the board's expectations. That is the general standard that is held true for a comprehensive permit project. That's a project in which they're utilizing state law that says that if you're giving us 25% affordable, we get these certain approaches. This is not a comprehensive permit project. They're not held to the standard that the units have to be integrated. Let's all keep in mind that they're giving us a percentage of affordable for the entire 712 unit project, but they're providing all of that in the apartment complex. That's the vehicle that they are choosing to use to provide us with the number of affordable units. That would not be appropriate in the comprehensive permit. It is appropriate, and there's no restriction or regulation that withholds it from doing here. There's nothing that would restrict this applicant other than by condition of this board from providing all the units in one of the apartment buildings. There's nothing that, so what we were interested in is that the hard number, the percentage number. We understood the applicant was going to develop it in a geographic way and mix it the way that they saw fit, and they were not held to a higher standard there. So I think that's an important distinction. This is not assumed to be integrated the way that other affordable housing projects are assumed to be integrated.
I like that part of the comp plan where the affordables are scattered throughout the development. It's not just one area, especially if there's going to be no connection from that section to the other section.
Yeah, and
but I'm glad you explained it, Doug.
I think that it's certainly the applicant's understanding and assumption based on the previous discussion that they brought is that it would all be provided in lot 4.
Right.
Beyond that, we haven't heard the details around how they might be integrated into the buildings. You could certainly inquire about that, and you could even ask for some degree of assurance where you might be seeking it there. But I wanted to be clear that there is a distinction. There's no regulation. What we have here is an offering, and they're allowed to offer it in the context and format and the intermixing that they see fit until you guys suggest another alternative.
Okay, because I just don't like the kind of segregation of that LMI.
Understood. It's a good point.
Thank you.
If I could, just to that point, generally I do agree that integration into the entire project does make a lot of sense. I think what makes this project a little different is the fact that these are kind of treated almost as two separate projects, though they are being permitted as one. There's not a lot of play between the two sides of this one project. I'll also point out, and maybe this will help, is that I do think, though it's important to have that integration, we also do need we do need to have different types of housing that take advantage of this affordable component. So for instance, we have Compton Meadows just down the street. Those are those 2-bedroom single-family condos, and we have other projects in town that are just like that. We don't have too many projects like this where it will be these studio apartments. So I do appreciate the fact that this will introduce a different type of housing that is affordable that people can take advantage of.
And I was going to kind of go along the same line because at the onset, I know when the chairman brought this topic up, the big thing is the town's trying to get to its affordable housing goal, regardless of what kind of unit it is. And I think the developer offered the 15%, and then they ended up being in the rental area. But if he had to make affordable units throughout the other development, it probably comes with a price tag. And what this does is it still helps us attain our goal, inching up to, the state mandate. And we certainly, at least from what I've seen, have a shortage of affordable rentals in the town. I am curious to see how they would be spread, whether it would be equally studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, as opposed to all the studios. That would be helpful, but just doing some quick math, there's 712 units being constructed in the entire project. 15% is 106. We're talking about a difference to get to 20% of 35 units. So it's between 106 units and 142 or so units. I don't know what the options are. We can make a motion based on what's been offered. We can vote to continue, or we can wait to hear from the applicant to see if he would like to come forward with a different number. But I would also like to know how they would be scattered amongst one-bedroom studios and two-bedroom, whether it's a third, or most of the affordable would be half of them would be in the studios and the rest would be divided. See, it's happening. Go ahead.
So, yeah, this really shouldn't be a negotiation, but we'll indulge. So, is it on? Sorry. I mean, my client really wants to help the town, but these units cost developers money. You understand? So the reason why we're putting them into buildings, which will be a mix, is because that helps the cost of the.
That's.
So what we're gonna offer is we can go up to 18%, but my client owns several pieces of property. We want to be able to put those units where he best sees fit. It makes, so we want to have it may be lot 4, but it may be lot 8 or lot 6 or lot 7. We need to have some flexibility in terms of where best to put these units. And that helps you with your goal.
And when you talked about, we're talking about either in the lots that are currently shown on this plan. I know you go to Mr. Narkowitz's point, lot numbers. I'm talking about either
2, 3, 4, but then he also is under agreement for other lots, 8, 6, and 7. So, and I know you need to know when we're gonna actually build them, but we would like sort of a blanket by agreement that we will provide 18% low and moderate income housing on the properties that he controls. And that's the best we can do.
I think that not reflecting on the number.
Okay, I just want to make sure. The other lots that he controls, in other words, there's potential future residential development of additional units above the 712. So is the 18% on the total units of everything he controls, or just on the 712?
No, well, it has to be on the whole thing.
Yeah.
When we say 18, it's gonna be.
So in other words, anything he develops residential from now on any of these lots, it's gonna be 18.
That's what he's.
And
You wanna be?
yeah, I don't want to go with.
Hi, it's Tim Eden, record, Star Capital. Tim Eden, Star Capital. So the notion is 18%, but we want a flexibility at the preliminary plan stage to site down that where it makes sense. It may be lot 4, it may be lot 2, maybe lot 3. We're in the process of engineering the property now.
Yep.
And this is a bump, there is a cost.
I understand.
And so part of being able to aggregate the units and site them will help defray that cost. That makes sense.
Correct. But what I was just trying to get at is 18% of the units that are to be constructed on this development and anything else you do. So that way you don't have to worry about this again. You're not going to come in the next time on lot 6 and say, I get this many units, and we go, oh, 18 is not good enough. Now we want 20. It's 18 on everything you build. So if you only build the 712 and you walk away from all the other parcels, there'll be 18% in here that's below the mark. Yes, sir.
My one comment on this, I think that what the applicant has suggested is very viable. We can't make conditions or agreements on properties that aren't properly in front of us tonight. What we have in front of us tonight are 3 parcels that are being discussed for development purposes. What can happen is if the applicant comes back at a preliminary plan and they have a vision in which they're indicating they'd like to site some of these affordables at a new property that isn't actually part of this subject application, we do 2 things. We'd actually amend this master plan agreement, and then we would consider another alternative site as part of the preliminary. It is understood the applicant has other properties in this direct vicinity of center of New England, in which if they come back at a future stage, we could consider that. So I think the applicant's asking for flexibility. Technically, we can't have a motion to give the flexibility. All we have in front of us are the parcels that have been noticed. But I think we could consider that as a general discussion point, that we could consider an amended master plan and a preliminary plan that might explore that further in future stages.
And nothing changes because item 2 is still just gonna say by agreement. We're not
By
putting
agreement.
any stipulation in there because it still has to be approved by the court. So right now, we just have an understanding. I'm sorry?
It has to be agreed to by the applicant. The court order says you cannot impose a regulation. We're not gonna go back to court. The applicant's agreeing to the 18%. So you can make it a condition because it's a condition by agreement as opposed to a condition imposed by the board. You cannot impose a condition of affordable units on them. But they could agree to that. Why are they agreeing to it? Because they want you to vote for the project.
Right, and that's where I'm getting at. What do we have to do in terms of somebody voting, moving this forward to a vote?
Item 2 would add the words by agreement and then cite the condition.
But the only thing I would add is, I would ask, Mr. Igliosi to weigh in on this. We want flexibility in this decision. I understand that but we're not asking for any particular site right now. I would like, as part of that by agreement, that the planning board gives flexibility for this 18, where these LMI units are going to be located, to other properties under Star Capital's control. And I think that's perfectly fine. Even though we're looking at lots 2, 3, and 4, I need for the decision to say that there's flexibility to cite those LMI units on other lots that Mr. Eden controls. That's all.
Mr. Chair, so perhaps we could do it in a couple of pieces. If the applicant is willing to agree that there would be 15% on this site, 15% on this site, hang on, and 3% on this site or at other sites that are owned, that kind of covers both issues.
No, because we may not put any units on lot 4.
What they're looking to do is let's say do 15% on this one and 23 somewhere else.
Yeah.
They're going by the number.
I want it to be very clear. There's a huge cost to doing LMI. Everybody knows that. So Mr. Eden has to look at this entire development that he controls and determine where the best place to put these LMI units. For the town, it's a win-win because it's a number. You need to get to 10%. So we're going to put it in the best place that's appropriate, but we need that flexibility. So I think the condition should be not a condition, by agreement. The applicant will provide 18% LMI units on any and all development that he controls within the center of New England, and that the locations of those LMI units will be flexible at future stages of development. That's it.
Yeah,
So moved.
right. So if you don't want to put those extra 35 units in this development, you could come in theoretically with lot 6 and say, we're just going to do 35 affordable units and you meet your 18%. Something like that.
But
I hope someone can
but
remember
the
that.
schedule of construction would be simultaneous.
Well, and again, we come back with a plan, which could be before simultaneous and or some other assurance that you and I, David, can work out. But we just want to be, I mean, like I said, he's being very generous.
No, I understand. It's going through my head. It's how we're going to get this in the form of a mo.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Pull it out this point.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it was just brought to my attention. Before we entertain, I think I need a motion to close public hearing.
Make a motion that we close public hearing.
Have a motion to close public hearing.
Second motion.
Second by Mr. Price. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Have it. Okay. Right.
Mr. Chair, so before anyone makes a motion, let's just unpack here what the waivers actually are. One is the, 2 spaces to 1.5, and is that the only one?
So I'd like to be clear about the motion. There will need to be two separate votes on this project. One of the votes will be for the variance. The variance is the 1.25 parking, I'm sorry, the 1.5 parking spaces instead of 2. That's a separate decision. It's technically zoning relief, and this board can provide that relief. Then the next motion would be a motion on the project. Now that motion will take a little bit of additional text than what you see at the end of the staff report. And I'd be happy to help you with that. That motion would now incorporate 2 new waivers. These are new waivers that the applicant brought up verbally. They did confer with me on those waivers, and I can, at least for the purposes of the board's consideration, the waivers they're bringing are 24-foot roadway width and sidewalks on one side of the street for the entirety of the development. In my opinion, that those waivers are appropriate on the condition that that roadway that connects parcels 3 and 4 does not allow vehicle traffic. That's their intent right now. And as long as they maintain that intent, then I'm comfortable with those waivers. Those waivers will be part of the second decision on the project. And waivers are relief from subdivision regulations. They're not relief from the zoning ordinance. So it's a different type of relief we're giving. And then we will have a conversation about how we would word the by agreement. I think we're going to pull condition number 2 out of conditions. We're going to have it as part of a motion, and we're going to have a clause that'll say by agreement. And now we have a number that we can articulate if the board is comfortable with what they've heard thus far. That's the framework of the motion, that the 2 motions that we would have. So if you're comfortable, the first motion we would make and need to make by state law is actually the 1.5 zoning relief. But feel free to have a discussion, make sure you're comfortable with all aspects before you vote.
Doug. The items 3, 4, 5, and 6 and the conditions of approval we have on page 11, those are waivers from the checklist.
Conditions of approval on page 11 of the staff report.
County water, traffic impact study, soil erosion, sedimentation, and the dumpster enclosure.
Those are conditions of approval. They're not waivers. What we would do is those conditions of 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 would all remain. They're going to be conditions of approval of the second decision of the project. There's a vote to provide a vote of variance relief, and then there's a vote to approve the project.
Right, okay. I was just looking because I believe the applicant said they were waiving, they wanted a waiver on checklist items that could be kicked off the preliminary, and then the roadway width and the sidewalks. Those were the
Correct. And the checklist waivers, we've already generally been in agreement. We have the right amount of information from master plan right now. So that is an issue that didn't need an explicit waiver. It's something they brought up as there's certain pieces of your checklist. We don't have like a soil erosion sedimentation control plan. To be quite frank, that's something we expect much later. That's an informational waiver. The other pieces of this are conditions of approval are basically this decision is tied to, they have to do those conditions.
Okay, I just wanted to double check the weight. So the only 2 waivers that we have to be concerned with are the roadway width and the sidewalks.
That's correct.
And then the conditions of approval, and then we're still in flux a little bit on the agreement on the.
Correct.
And just to add, the conditional approval was 6, now it's down to 5. Was there also another traffic study that we're going to add as a condition, that preliminary, or was that not part of a condition? And also construction of the construction equipment traffic, or is that not part of a condition?
There is a condition of approval as it relates to the traffic study. It's number 4 on your conditions right now.
Okay.
It basically reads the traffic study addressing the comments raised by the peer reviewer, which were holistic and thorough and addressed all of the pieces of information that we need to have for the next phase. And it says that traffic study shall be presented at the next stage of review.
Okay. Yeah, just gonna make it clear for whoever does it.
Does anyone further discussion on anything that Doug just explained? Question.
You can ask
Mr. Bright.
I'd like to just.
I need to break.
Sorry. Just like to state that I think the 18%. I'd just like to state that I think the 18% is reasonable for the low and moderate income.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if someone wants to, put forth actually at least, possibly two motions, one on the, unified zoning, and then the second on the overall master, and we'll figure out what we're gonna do about the Board of Ed.
If I may, I think, if the board is comfortable, the way the motion could be framed, instead of reading all of the text that we have, the motion for the first one is the variance. We have findings of fact, enumerated in the staff report. We have a recommendation enumerated in the staff report. You can just say motion to adopt the staff findings of fact and recommendation. Feel free to consider any modifications to it that you may see fit, but you can make the motion as simple as that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion considering the 1.5 parking spaces tied to the parcel 4. I'd like to consider the items in the staff report, the findings of fact, and the agreements from our peer review, an agreement and an approval with the data presented by the applicant. I miss anything?
And just that you would recommend to adopt the staff recommendation.
I recommend to adopt staff recommendations.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Discussion beyond parking barrier. Hearing none. Favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
I'll make a motion for the land development project portion. Yes, of course. I make a motion to approve the requested land development project known as Center of New England, located at Assessor's Plat 13, Lot 14, Assessor's Plat 14, Lots 1 and 65, as well as a portion of Assessor's Plat Lots 14, Assessor's Plat 14, Lot 1.2, and Assessor's Plat 15, Lot 98 in the Business Park Zone, making up a total area of approximately 82.1 acres. The applicants being Star Capital LLC and owned by Matthew J. McGowan, receiver for Commerce Park Properties LLC, Commerce Park Associates 4 LLC, and Catapult Realty LLC. The project request being the construction of 362 dwelling units in duplex-style buildings, as well as 350 units in multifamily buildings for a total of 712 residential units. As part of this motion, I make a motion to approve the requested waivers, specifically being the ability for the applicant to construct 24 width roadway for interior roads, and then second for 4-foot sidewalks on one side throughout the entirety of the project. This motion is inclusive of the following conditions. One, that the master plan approval is conditioned upon strict adherence to the associated dimensional variance as presented and approved. Two, that the applicant shall provide a letter from Kent County Water Authority confirming water availability in its preliminary plan application. Three, a final traffic study addressing the comments raised by the peer reviewer dated September 18th, 2024, as well as any changes to the project design as submitted in the preliminary plan application. Four, the applicant shall submit a soil erosion and sedimentation control plan, grading plan, a utility plan, and a drainage plan. Its preliminary plan application. And five, dumpster enclosure location shall be noted on the preliminary plan set as applicable. And then finally, we can discuss the language of the affordable.
Yep. I think we may be getting a little bit of firm language on that. Do you need a second, David?
I think what I'd like to do is just describe what I believe. And I want to make sure that the applicant agrees. And when we look at just trying to operate from the provision in your notes as to condition number 2. So I'm going to kind of just go through that and help the applicant's attorney can jump in. First of all, this would be an agreement, not a condition.
Got it.
The applicant has agreed as part of this project to provide 18% of the units to be deed restricted as low and moderate income housing and across the, all development in lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
I'm sorry,
All
can you
lots.
can you say that one more time?
The applicant has agreed to reduce,
Yep.
provide 18%
Yep.
percentage of units to be deed restricted as low and moderate income housing across all development of all residential development on lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it's gonna be 18% of any and all residential development. Oh, well then let's correct that. I wanna make sure I get it right. Mr. Egan?
Tim Egan, Star Capital, lot 1.
Okay, all right. But otherwise, am I close to what we're talking about? All right. I'm gonna repeat it, Mr. Egan, please correct me, because again, I wanna get it right. We're trying to do this on the fly, gentlemen, as you know. Okay, I'm gonna read it again from the beginning. By agreement of the applicant has agreed to provide 18%, and 18% of the units to be deed restricted as low and moderate income housing. Force, the development, any and all development on lots 2 through 8. Any and all development on lots 2 to 8 will have 18% affordable of any residential development, That's a big offer that he's making. And he will provide, a plan on how that will be, designed as to location and schedule, if you will, at the preliminary plan of this project. Because this project only involves 3 lots. And he will, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong, and he will agree that there will, that the construction of the affordable units will have connection to the construction of the units on lots, on these 2 lots. They will not be done after. There'll be a promise later. Okay, then we can leave that last lot. All right, they're not gonna, I know that's a big issue, everybody's talking about it, but it's clearly not, it's only a requirement, it's not a requirement here. So the percentage that you're getting is something that you're getting, without any comprehensive permit requirement. So that is a big, it is a big difference, and I think the board, it's a meaningful difference, because it means you could get 80% of more than 700. That's what that means.
Right.
It's what I'm hearing from the applicant.
So again, not to be redundant.
Yeah, I'm a little bit.
It's 18, it's by agreement, it's gonna provide 18% as low to moderate income. Any residential development that takes place on lots 2 through 8. And he's gonna present a plan on how that's gonna be accomplished at the preliminary plan stage.
So with that, I'll add, and anybody correct me. By agreement, the applicant will provide 18% of units to be deed restricted as low and moderate income housing across any and all development on lots 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 for any residential development. There will be a plan presented at the preliminary stage on the location and schedule of such units. And the units will not be integrated. Good.
My only comment on the entire motion as it reads, which is fine and perfect, is that I would like to add a condition to the waivers, which is that those waivers that we described are granted on the condition that that roadway between lots 3 and 4 does not carry regular vehicle traffic. Does that make sense?
So with that, the waivers are conditioned upon, sorry, again.
It's between lots 3 and 4. Is the roadway between lots 3 and 4 does not convey regular vehicle traffic.
Condition upon the roadway between lots 3 and 4 does not carry regular vehicular traffic. Therefore, based on the outlined findings of facts set forth in the staff report, testimony presented by the applicant and the representatives, and supporting documents included in the application, I make a motion to approve the requested major land development project, subject to the noted conditions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Chuck Smith, second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, I just one clarification, Doug. I know what you're trying to accomplish, but just for the record, what we're saying is if that road's not built, then obviously they're not gonna do the sidewalks, but if it is, the waivers don't apply.
That's correct.
Mr. Price? Oh, okay, all right. With that being said, I'll entertain a vote for the. Yep, we have a second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? 7-0. We'll see at preliminary. Okay. Heather, you want to keep going? I'm only kidding you. No, we're gonna take a break. Just a few. Go ahead. Now. Yeah, it's 9 o'clock. Now we're just for the record. I know we got another public hearing and it's on Coventry Crossings. I think that we're gonna see how far we go. Who's here for the app? Is anyone here for the next item? Oh, it's no, it's not Tom. It's okay.
And if you don't mind making an announcement of the desired end time for tonight, that might be helpful for some of the members of the public that are staying.
I'm sorry?
If you don't mind making an announcement of the board's desired end time for tonight, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting to. I just wanted to make sure there was someone here. So, I'm gonna have to adjourn this meeting tonight, probably at 9:45. So we'll see how far we get in the next 45 minutes. I know the applicant's probably gonna present some changes to the application at Coventry Crossings. If we have time for public hearing, public comment, we will. And if time permits, great, but if not, we will just continue, to the next regularly scheduled planning board meeting to be held, I don't know, next month. I'll get a date certain. Okay, if anyone needs to stretch. All right, we're gonna get started in just a minute. Alex, did you drop enough of these for everybody? Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's got it. Okay. And some emails from residents. Okay. All right, our next item will be another public hearing. It is for the preliminary plan application for Coventry Crossings mixed use development. The owners John Casella and William Eccleston Revocable Trust et al. And it's Craig New Homes. And for the applicant, we have, good evening.
William Landry, Whitman Kavanaugh, 30 Exchange Terrace, Providence, representing the applicant. See you again. As you recall, we had a master plan approval back in October of last year. There have been a couple of changes on the project. We've made the project smaller and better. We had 142 units, invested approval. That's dropped down to 120 units. Obviously provides for much smaller, significantly smaller development area than previously. We've also, because of the infeasibility of a sewer connection, moved to an OWTS design that's pending before DEM at this point. The project continues to be a low and moderate income project under the state low and moderate comprehensive permit low mod act. 25% of the units will be deed restricted for affordable housing. The applicant would like to have the flexibility to do rentals if the sale of the units doesn't proceed as expected. Some of these projects it becomes difficult to sell the affordable units, surprisingly, because at 120% of area median, it gets close to, some people would rather pay the market price and not be paying, have the deed restriction. May be able to afford the market prices. So it becomes difficult sometimes to sell the affordable units. I'd like to have some flexibility to rent them. I heard you say tonight, and acknowledge that rentals are indeed needed in the area. The town remains at last count at just over 5%. We have 30 affordable units that would be contributed to that total. I'll refresh your recollection. These are all two-bedroom units, all 120. There's 60 single-family two-bedroom homes and 30 deep duplexes. So another 60 duplexes, also two bedrooms. The commercial component of the project was an issue of much discussion at the master plan level, trying to reduce the intensity of commercial uses. So we wound up with a single commercial pad of 12,500 square feet near the entrance to the development. And board imposed, certain restrictions that we'll live with. I'll discuss a little in a minute, as to what can actually happen, on that path. We've reviewed the staff report. I'm trying to make this as compact, as possible in view of the time considerations. We attended the technical review committee and have gone through the proposed conditions in the staff report and have no objections to any of those. First one relates to the uses that cannot have on commercial parcels, convenience store, restaurant or fast food, supermarket, convenience, pharmacy, marijuana, liquor, and coffee or donut shop. We need a final approval letter from the fire marshal regarding the maneuverability of the fire apparatus on the property. The statewide approvals will be secured at the final plan stage. That's a feature of a comprehensive permit. The RIDDM permits are all accomplished at the master plan stage. That stage is well underway in earnest at DEM. There's wetlands permitting, OWTS permitting, RIPDs for the stormwater, and also the Department of Transportation and Physical Alteration. Our engineers have been in close contact with DEM and with the DOT. We're proposing a turning lane now into the project that will reduce some confusion. And that's something that was advocated by a number of people at the master plan stage, and that's part of our proposals to DOT. It's too early in the stage to get definitive feedback from the state agencies, but we're well underway with that process. The lighting plan will be included as part of the final plan. There's no objection to that. The street trees staying away by 10 feet for anything that's not a top-rooted tree is certainly acceptable. We also agreed to the grading improvements in Shoulder and Gooseneck Hill Road to help with the drainage there and to handle the coordination with state authority for that drainage work. There was a preference by Public Works for concrete sidewalks. We had been proposing asphalt berms, and that is acceptable to the applicant. And the integration of units throughout the development is also obviously acceptable. It's a requirement, and that's what the applicant has done in all of his projects. I do have a question or a request on the fair share development fees. The issue's a little bit murky here. We would propose to work with the solicitor as we proceed to the final plan stage of this project. We would like to see the fair share development fees waived, not as the market rate units, but as to the affordable units. I do know there's some preference. There's some precedent in the town for having done that on some other projects. I also understand that there's uncertainty as to whether the planning commission has the ability to waive those fees, or if that has to go to the council. We had a case involved Coventry and a comprehensive permit and fair share development fees a long time ago. But it was determined that they were the town was not required to waive fair share development fees on the market rate units, but that it was appropriate for them to do that as to the affordable units if there were impracticalities associated, feasibilities associated with that. And as you know, the applicants lose money on every affordable unit. And I know you're trying to encourage and incent the creation of affordable units. But the $5,800 a unit becomes a real issue, with these affordable units. The buyers are qualified based on their income. There is certain assumption about, condo fees and insurance. But there's no room in the qualification of buyers for any type of impact fee. That falls 100% on the applicant that's already losing money trying to create it. So, most other municipalities provide that for that as an exemption, without having it to be requested through the comprehensive permit process. It's an issue that I don't expect, the board to resolve tonight, particularly in view of the time, but I just want to make it clear that we are in agreement with the language, that the fair share of development fees will be paid. We'd like to reserve the ability at the final plan stage to try to work out an appropriate compromise. I don't think it requires a town council, but I could be persuaded if it does, because we'd like to continue to work on that issue as we approach the final plan stage of review. I don't want to steal the engineers part of this, here to answer questions. I know that we got, that you may have received a letter from Kent County Water Authority. They have approved the water services for the project, done their hydraulic modeling, and issued the will serve letter. They interposed an objection to DEM to the WTS, citing potential concerns relating to their reservoir. That's a DEM issue that will be addressing DEM. I think this letter was just issued within the last day or so. There are some inaccuracies in the letter. It indicates that we are within their part of our project is in the sewer requirement area. That's simply not the case. It's not in that area. And they're also suggesting that we have the ability to tie into the sewer and that the sewer is available to us. That is not in fact the case. The sewer became impossible for us when it was indicated after the master plan state that we would be responsible for paying for an upgrade of the pump station, which would have made this project impossible. There was no approval of the sewers on any basis that would allow this project to proceed. So we don't have a sewer option. The standard before this board is whether there's a health, safety, or material health, safety, or welfare issue associated with any factor. The fact that we're moving to OWTS only subject to full approval by DEM, and the water quality issues and all the other issues DEM covers being resolved prior to the final plan stage of review. We don't believe that there could be a health and safety issue associated with the OWTS. If our design proceeds the way we designed it, and DEM approves it, including water quality certification. But again, that's a DEM issue, and it's an issue for consideration by this board as well of the state permitting at the final plan stage of review. We're happy to take any questions that you might have. Tim Hemingway's here. Our engineer, John Kent, is here as well.
Does anyone on the board have any questions? I have one comment on the fair share development fees.
Yes.
I believe the practice has been the board makes a recommendation to the town council and the town council. So
I understand that. I guess the question is, and I don't want to have an argument about it. I respect your solicitor very much. And I think it's something we may be able to reach agreement on. But the board does have the ability to take such action that the town council would otherwise take. And I know that this board did approve the waiver of the fair share fees on the Omni development case that I mentioned, and also on another case involving maybe Willow Lake or something like that.
Did we? Okay, well, we'll look back and go with, the point was that if we can't do it at a minimum, you generally make the recommendation as part of the motion to approve, is what I was trying to get at.
I understand.
In agreement with just the LMI units. What would be helpful, I think, maybe for the board, because some time has lapsed, is just to maybe kind of highlight anything that's changed within the development. Like, I believe the commercial property looks like it's in about the same location as before. The access points, the layout of the roads, and then I'm interested, is that one on-site wastewater treatment system for everybody in the unit that's going up front? If I looked at the plan correctly, I'm just wasn't sure. So
why don't I defer to Sam?
Sure. So
The site layout hasn't changed much. There's been some discussion about a potential additional driveway to the development in the back. And I think Sam can cover that.
Yeah, because we know there's definitely been a substantial reduction in units, 142 to 120. So that's far less than what was originally sought, and I think even the original number was less than what you had originally applied for. So we've got that, but yeah, when I look at this plan and not going back and looking at the other one, I tried to gauge for myself what changed. So I think it might just be helpful for the board to just real quick,
Yep, and I just want to remind you, the one unit, it's described in the staff report as a subdivision, but it's more likely to be a land condominium for the residential units as a parcel A, and the commercial unit as a parcel B.
Sure.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Sam Hemingway. I'm an engineer from Garofalo and Associates doing business out of South. As suggested, I'm going to keep this pretty brief, focus in on at least the most substantive changes that have occurred. I think Bill did a great job kind of highlighting the impact of those. But to walk through those, in regards to the entrances, there was actually a realignment that occurred to the western entrance as indicated on this project. That was introduced during the master plan stage, and so there's a bit of an overlap between what you've seen already and then some of the additional input we got from the state. So in a nutshell, that entrance was originally aligned with Maple Root. So it was about 250 feet to the west. There was some discussion at the master plan hearings about confusion caused by right turning vehicles from Mooseneck onto Harkey Hill, but their blinker would stay on. So there was, I think that was the impetus for the extension of the right turn lane onto Hill Farm Road. So we shifted to provide greater separation, added the right turn lane. So the orientation is very similar. It is by about 250 feet. Again, we have done a round of review through the state. So we've coordinated with them back to them, have not received a final permit. The other road and circulation, again, at a high level, has been the elimination of two significant cul-de-sacs. So in reconfiguring the project and reducing the number of units, we dropped the road length considerably, improving both the pervious area and the landscape area ratio pretty considerably, but also eliminated the need for dead-end turnaround. So we've gone from the last configuration actually had 3 cul-de-sacs. We were down to a single cul-de-sac, so much better circulation on this project. We similarly
advance the design as it relates to the stormwater management. We had actually done quite a bit of initial due diligence work at the master plan level, probably much more than was evident by the plans. But in submitting to the state, they indicated that the man-made wetland that's indicated on the right plan is actually currently functioning as a vernal pool. So they're getting some species that are filling up, even though it's a lined pond. That is obviously water doing a pretty good job. So we've increased the undisturbed area adjacent to that and increased the buffers in that zone in a fairly convincing way. 100-foot typically required for those is an existing buffer of less than 20 feet. That particular facility. So we've landed in accordance with the current DM rules at 50% of the required buffer for all areas and maintain the full buffer in areas where it's undisturbed or at least acting undisturbed. So there has been, although it doesn't show up, there has been a modification on the right side of that plan, which is actually more northward, that increases the amount of vegetated area and increases the flood storage available on that side of the project. Both of those are not something that you can see from the plan, but shows up in the calculation reports that were submitted. We are similarly have gone around review through the state EM, obviously to get that input from them on that issue and through the drainage. All those changes have been incorporated and we submitted. Touched on because of the sewer change, there was a lot of overlap changes to the plans. All of that has been, we believe, fully coordinated and described by EM. They're actively working to review things. Specifically, the OWPS system, it is in fact one large system. We evaluated a number of different configurations, given the constraints of the property and the concerns obviously identified by, I think, water, but just in general, to arrive at a system that provides excellent treatment. So we're going to an advanced treatment system. We believe the configuration provides the most safeguard for this particular project. It also, we did testing all over the property and did some additional hydrogeologic testing, some deep groundwater monitoring wells to ascertain the true direction of flow and to site system in a location that provides the maximum amount of separation available on this property. So we have similarly submitted that state. We had early discussions with them to talk about the concerns that have been raised. And presented our materials in such a manner that it addresses those. Again, they're under review. We expect that information should advance to the point, sit down with them, and probably discuss the issue further with them. That process, similar to this one, is a public notification process. Kent County will be actively involved in that, more so frankly than the planning component. And we will continue to work to get that running in the final process. So that's a 10,000 foot, a very minor clarification as it relates to some of the waivers that Scott got and actually advance further during the TRC. The only minor point was about the sidewalk. I think there's a real desire by this applicant to maintain the bituminous concrete walks and some of the concrete, specifically less related to any real disagreement, but more about the type of development that is, proximity of the units and the aesthetic of the product that you is used to constructing and is intending on putting here. Based on doing similar projects at this scale, the concrete walks are showing signs that either you do a patchwork installation, a short amount of sidewalk and then asphalt, or the sidewalks themselves are getting either damaged or at least aesthetically marred during the construction process because of the proximity. So, he believes it's a significantly better product to install bituminous blocks, understanding their longevity is more, they are easier to maintain, and he believes the aesthetics better. So, we would like to continue to ask the board to consider that waiver. Obviously, it is in fact a waiver from the design standards outlined by rules, similar to the reduced width from 30 feet to 24 feet. The sidewalk to one side, the sidewalk here, waiver to the standards, technically within the rules, but it's certainly advocated by the staff. So again, hopefully I touched on at the level that you'd like to hear. I have a lot of technical data at my disposal that I can expand on these specific sites that I'd like to hear about.
Mr. Burke.
Sorry, Heather. So this was just given to us 10 minutes ago. The county water letter dated yesterday. I read it really quickly. I listened to what Mr. Landry had said. And one line jumps out, and I'm going to read it. And it says, "We are very concerned about the potential adverse impacts this large OWTS will have on the public water supply aquifer that serves Carbon Ridge and West Branch." Not just concerned, very concerned. And you said that's inaccuracy. You are not concerned about it, correct? And you think DEM is you're confident DEM is going to prove it?
No, when I two inaccuracies. One, it indicated that we're in their watershed, and we're not. Okay. All of the work is outside of that watershed. It also was a suggestion that we have a sewer option available to us, which is also not true. Okay. So now we believe that with the advanced treatment that DEM will approve this OWTS as being consistent with their rules and regulations. I assume that Kent County means what they said, that they said they were concerned, but that doesn't mean that they've performed the engineering analysis that will be required for us to get through this issue at DEM. Obviously, if DEM doesn't approve the OWTS, we're not going to get final approval from this board, and that's an issue that's in front of us. So I didn't mean to minimize their level of concern. I respect that they probably are concerned, but we have to engineer it and satisfy all the DEM criteria, including water quality criteria. You know, we expect to be able to do that. You won't see us here if we don't.
Understood.
Just one point of clarification. Are you agreeing that concrete sidewalks are good or not? Because I thought at the beginning.
I was at a TRT where there was a clear preference expressed on the concrete sidewalks. I know that Sam had some further discussions after that meeting, and I was not a party. So he's in a better position to articulate our request.
Well, I understood the request, but he made it sound like the applicant didn't agree to it, and he still prefers the asphalt, so I just wasn't sure which it was.
That's what I wanted to put out. Okay, he spoke further with the Public Works about that issue after.
Right, I think there is disagreement between the applicant and the town engineer on the more suitable material. The applicant is willing to abide by it, and I think the decision is the board's to make. It's private property, he's well versed in the installation and the suitability for the product that he's putting out there. Again, respectfully request that the board consider making.
Okay, so it's still on the table. That was my point. There's still a request for a waiver on the table, and we can clarify with the town engineer one way or the other in the interim, I think, right, Doug?
If you would like, Right now, the way we framed the memo and the eventual decision is that we're seeking it as a condition of approval, that the sidewalks not have this mixed bituminous pavement, that they be full concrete. That's currently part of a condition of approval, but the board has the right to change any aspect of it. But I'll leave it there.
Okay, no, I just wanted to know if there was a reference, town engineer had real concerns or.
Yeah, there were, and they were just addressed a bit in the memo. He did have concerns with their overall durability, with heat island effect, with slip resistance. He had a number of reasons that he preferred a full concrete as opposed to the mix. And they were articulated in Tier C. Based on that, planning staff did feel that that was an appropriate condition of approval to suggest.
And what is the mix? Is it regular asphalt or is it something in between?
Effectively, it's asphalt versus concrete.
Black, with the berm, black.
Well, so the berm is a secondary issue, right? So the roadway width and the for lack of a better term, Cape Cod berm or bituminous concrete berm in lieu of concrete, vertical concrete curbing is, I think we all, I say this collectively, that we agreed, town engineer and the applicant agreed, the sidewalks themselves. So the pedestrian way is also proposed as bituminous concrete. And the primary reason is integration with the driveways, asphalt driveways that are occurring in the proximity of this installation type. We're gonna live with whatever conditions this board agrees.
I was just trying to get, so it's gonna be a roadway, then a, would you call it?
Like Cape Cod berm.
And then an additional 4 feet of black, similar to what the mix that's in the road?
Yeah.
Okay, and then when it got to the driveway, it would just continue up the driveway, as opposed to bringing in another element such as concrete from a concrete truck, having to curb it, put it all in, get to the driveway, stop, match it.
Exactly.
And worry about salt and all that stuff. All right, just wanted to make sure that I understood. Now, just for my own edification, I'm gonna check to see if other board members, but, so if I understood you correctly, the green space, for lack of a better word, on the north end of the property, behind the, what is supposed to be commercial, that's actually increased from the last application. Is that what you were saying? The buffer, the green space?
Absolutely. So there was initially, there was the cul-de-sac that headed to what I would consider to be the plan. Section, so heading up the page, there was an additional road and additional units in that area. I think there was actually quite a bit of discussion from some of the abutters. That was removed, and in its stead, we are still doing no disturb. There is board calls 40-foot no disturb zone posed around the entire length of the abutting residential uses, but the green space, so it'll be graded to provide more suitable storage. So additional flood storage in that area, graded and re-vegetated with the conservation.
But the development itself is now further away from those dwellings, and it looks like more than just a little bit, considerably.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I just don't recall. I remember having to move the roadway and shifting, the commercial property further away at the request of the neighbors over there. Their attorney came in and was adamant. We made the shift. This actually shifts things even further.
Yeah, the other area is the one effectively behind the entrance. So if the board recalls, there's an entry sign put at the intersection. So that's a stone line. I forget the terminology that was used by the board for kind of an entranceway. So the large green space behind the intersection where the OWTS system is, will be now fairly greenway in that area.
And the only points of ingress and egress now are on one spot and shared with the commercial. And then the one on Hockey Hill Road that shifted away from Maple Leaf. So there's only 2 entrances in and out, and there's a potential for deceleration. That matters before DOT.
Yes.
And could you just show us, it looks like there's some guest parking accommodations that are made and also, trash, where's trash?
So trash would be individual pickup.
Okay.
So, each unit would have
Their own
individual
can.
bin and private picked up. The parking, so there's driveway parking provided in each unit, so a garage unit and driveway unit. So that the single families will have 4 vehicle spaces accommodated. The duplexes will have 2 spaces each. The smaller units, the smaller duplex units actually just have parking in front without a garage, but would have a second story. And the additional parking is dispersed throughout the property. We provide parking zones to try and avoid the parking on the street.
And how about mail?
There is a common mailbox, better term for it.
Yeah.
So community box system. It's actually at the rear of the commercial. So it was originally, it was on the west, the left side of Hartman Hill, through internal discussion. We felt that actually the larger, and review of the traffic, that a larger percentage of the users would be coming in off the Hartman Hill entry. So that little bump out serves there's about 5 park spaces up there by the wetland. So there'll be a common mailbox in there with parking spaces for residents to pull in off the roadway, get the mail and return. It's also the point of connection for a walkway going to the neighborhood in the back.
If now there's 3 other areas that look like you've got some designated parking spaces. What are those?
I believe that there's more.
There's 1, 2 up there. They're all on the road center.
Yeah. If you construe the 2 to be one, the 2 on the right one. Yes, that's.
So what are those, guest parking or do those go to units?
They would be guest parking.
Okay.
I mean, potentially they could go to units as well. I don't think they would.
Alright, so in other words, you've got some extra parking spaces built at key locations.
Absolutely.
Okay, and, okay, and then just for the audience, just because I read some of the comments, we're still getting some feedback, and these are all privately maintained roads. No town vehicles need to go in there and pick up trash, privately maintained, plowed, all that stuff. This is a private development, and it's for the residents and guests and people that live there.
Correct.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions? Mr. Price?
I'd like to go back to the Kent County Water Authority, paperwork. The map they have for their wellhead protection area is very difficult to read, and I agree with you that it appears that the OWTS is outside of the wellhead area, but not the development as a whole. But my question comes in, DEM does the OWTS, the stormwater, no increase in flow, total volume, and all that other stuff. And also will permit the OWTS. You said you confirmed that the groundwater flow area of the OWTS does not flow in the direction of the wellhead?
No, actually, it's kind of a crazy shape. So I don't think I would characterize it that way. What I hope I said was that we recognize the well protection area and the shape that it is. We reviewed the groundwater, which is actually this plan is heading about 10 o'clock, and cited the system maximize the separation. So for that sensitive receptor from the system. So we maximize selected technology that we felt provided the greatest safeguard, and then maximize separation, and have summarized that in here in front of the OWTS section. As part of that process, when they are satisfied that that the questions that they have are adequately addressed. That information, more technical information, will be provided to people within a radius, as well as, and more critically, to Kent County Water. So although they just got the letter, this is not new. I mean, it's not surprising that of course, I would be more surprised if they didn't voice a concern for any system, not just a large system, and not just this system. That's a significant portion of the town that is all served by OWTS systems. It's, you know, there are other types of industries and businesses that are considered to be land uses, higher potential pollutants. There are a significant number of those in the protection area. All of those things, all of these are considerations that will in fact be weighed by.
Okay, and that was my next question. So we don't know the business going in here yet. Is this business also going to use this OWTS?
No, it would have a set OWTS.
Okay, so that hasn't been cited yet.
Happen again, it'll be slightly, it will be farther from the wetland protection area. Only slightly, but obviously it makes a pretty considerable difference what that tenant is to, you know, what safeguards might be appropriate for it. So we have done soil testing to ensure that there is land suitable to do a septic system. But based on the specific configuration, we would look at that system just as hard and design it just as carefully and permit it in exactly the same.
And another follow-up question to that is, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if the OWTS or any of the other environmental permits you're going to get discusses or addresses groundwater table. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I'm looking at it and it's 75,000 gallons per day is the estimated use. And a majority of that is going to go into the OWTS. So I don't know, whatever it is, 50,000 gallons, 60,000 gallons are going into the groundwater table on a daily basis here. We have a lot of homes in the area with basement problems and flooding problems already. Does DEM address the groundwater table? Is this negatively going to impact the groundwater table as far as potentially raising the elevation of the groundwater table in the area?
It is certainly reviewed. We have done a pretty extensive analysis of that specific issue. Back to inaccuracies may be a wrong way to characterize it. I just want to at least point out that 78,000 gallons a day is
I'm just
an old
what they say.
data from the more intense development. First and foremost, so they went to their record, and we've talked to them a number of times. They went to the original information. It's somewhat less than that. We did a specific review of the ground impacts to groundwater, mounding analysis, impact of the area, and the extent to which the mounding would reach beyond the septic system. That was didn't reach the back of the homes on the property. And certainly wouldn't be an impact to existing properties.
Did we also look at irrigation, whether it's going to be a irrigated area? What do we expect for that?
The short answer is, no, we don't expect it. We have not precluded irrigation, but we have reviewed the expected impact from that. Now, the water mass in general is it's frankly, even looking at this area, the reason this is a wellhead protection area is because of the reservoir. This is actually the restorative, the positive restoration of water within the aquifer is actually something that's worth noting, right? So this is not a project that's pulling 70,000 gallons out of Head County Water's reservoir and putting it in Narragansett Bay, it is taking about half of that amount, 30,000 gallons, some number of gallons out of the water, treating it and restoring it to the aquifer from which it needs to replenish. So irrigation is the same way, for individual wells. In this instance, the water from in this location is from a water source that any interest property is going to be returning to water. So in mass, the balance is actually generally considered positive, notwithstanding significant concerns that have been identified regarding potential.
So we do know that this development is going to be pulling from this wellhead. But you really can't say that because they're all kind of connected together, so.
Right, it is certainly drawing on Kent County River. That's the source.
Thank you. Also.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Smith. Okay. So I do appreciate that. Well, regardless of how it was moved, that road was moved, because I think we saw it last time, it was just coming into the right turn hash mark lanes where people would, I don't know, 20 feet, right? So that's fantastic. I really appreciate the density change because clearly it had to be. Very disappointed, with this. So, I begged the question, I think it was twice, when it was like 99.9% sure that we could tap into sewers. I really didn't think this project would go on without it, but apparently shrinking the density, maybe we can. I know the comprehensive permit sites, when I hit for the site, this place was perfect for, amenities, bus, travel, walking to places, city water, city sewer. We just coming up short on the sewer. I just wanted to point that out. And just to piggyback on the stormwater, because it's not only, comments and concerns, but the engineer clearly, have you met with him yet? It says here, a meeting with the town engineer scheduled to revisit that. You're still gonna meet with him on that?
We did.
You did, okay.
I believe the condition that was included in the final recommendation from staff reflected the additional meeting that we had and what we felt was a suitable resolution. Plan to speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah, there is some context there. The town engineer took a very close look at stormwater. We know that's a concern. We know that there's some drainage issues in the neighborhood. And then based on further reflection with the applicant, there was a condition added. Think about the entire development, ultimately where it drains is it's the far low right-hand corner of this picture. So somewhere, I guess, it would be the easterly corner of the property as it touches to Newsnack. That's there, what we would call the design point. That's where if there's anything that goes above a 100-year storm, it would flow into the Newsnack Hill Road right of way. We've asked the applicant to clear a mounding of sediment that lies between their project site and other storm drains that exist under the state right of way. And that would essentially provide that further assurance of overflow. This would be for events that are above a 100-year storm, which essentially the applicant for DEM purposes does not have to address. But for the purposes of this plan, we have an overflow that is going to avoid this from impacting the private properties, and it will overflow into a state drainage resource. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. And I just want to revert back to what the Department of Public Works Director, he just nailed it and articulated it well. We're experiencing problems with, drainage issues from the same formulas, right? And it comes back to us, right? For why did you approve this? I'm getting water all over the place. It failed. And we're really just going by the experts. I mean, what are we to do? The experts are saying works, and then it doesn't. So the mention of the overflow, that's a big component, I think, to making sure that we don't have this problem.
Yep. This is a
contingency, I guess. I don't know.
I think that's a defined, contingency extra assurance. The applicant only has to meet the requirements of DEM as insofar as stormwater goes.
Right.
In this occasion, it does happen that the overflow point is a singular point in which we can direct this water to a place where it would not impact the private properties with some grading work. As a condition of approval, you'll see there's one about doing some grading work in that right of way. It's important to note that the Nooseneck is a state road, but there's a strip of town land that lies just beyond the state right of way, and that's where the grading work would need to happen. It's a town-owned property. The applicant's going to do the work, and you know, it will become, I think, to some degree reflected within their overall project approach here. It's an assurance. It's a protection beyond the 100-year storm, which is the protection beyond what they have to design for DEM purposes.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Smith. Yes, Mr. Hemingway, the OTWS field, or leach field, in the location that you indicated you're gonna design it for. From all the housing units, is it gravity or is it pressure?
Pressure.
It's pressure, so there's gonna be pumps at each house or gravity to central pump?
A series
Series of pumps. And with Kent County Water, so if you have a power outage, that's not gonna work. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they could have water flowing into the houses, but they won't be able to flush. Because you need electricity to push all those series of pumps. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is, you know, I like the idea that you moved the road that goes to and from Hackney Hill Road 250 feet, basically to the east. But there's still substantial traffic issues. I mean, is that the best we can do for the traffic issues there? Because you've got Hill Farm Road coming out, West Area Drive dumps out onto Hill Farm Road dumps out onto Hackney Hill Road. There's been a ton of car crashes there in that little intersection in the past. The people on Maple Root Road, it's one way. They only have one way in and out. And the traffic really does back up at the Dollar General. And this is even closer to it. So.
No, so I recognize everything that you're saying. I think that there has been a concerted effort by the state to make improvements in that area, coordinated with the town in terms of the Hill Farm, the right turn and those changes. I think they've significantly improved things. Obviously, the interchange realignment itself is a significant difference. You know, with or without this project, that area is a challenging spot for the town government, right? There's a lot of cars that go through there. The number of vehicles that we expect from our project, I don't think is not what I think. I think it's sort of presented. It is not having a significant impact there. We actually believe large majority of vehicles from our project will actually go out next to that very reason. So,
okay,
I understand what you're saying. It certainly is an area of town and watched and
it's narrow. It gets a lot of traffic there. In fact, our last planning board meeting, we had another project presented to it that's about opposite that driveway for 3 buildings. One's going to, he's an excavating site contractor, oil company, hazardous materials removal company. And he has a plan to put 3 buildings that's pretty close to opposite that. Also, so just something to think about. That's that traffic is tough on that spot. I drive it daily.
Agree.
And then the septic system with no power, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, not gonna work. Absolutely true. Any piece of electric equipment that doesn't have power, not gonna work. There are safeguards in place in terms of storage for individual units during those occurrences. You know, that standard is the one that we are meeting. There are provisions for emergency power for the treatment and the dispersion of individual homes. You have something in your basement. It's not going to work if power goes out. The presumption is that you are not operating at normal water consumption rate, although there is certainly public water when your water heaters are out. Life is a little different. If the power is out for 3 days, water consumption tends to go down. The storage available within the systems gets through those laps as the state standard.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The only comment I have, when you're talking about the mail central location, you may want to look at splitting that. Putting two locations, one on either end of the project, because you got 120 residents trying to get into that little area to get their mail on a particular day or every day. That might cause an issue because you only have, what, 3, 4, 5 parking places over there. Just a thought, just split it, put another one on the other end. Somewhere.
Okay.
Does anyone else on the board have any comment? Hate to kind of do this because I know we didn't get the public comment on the public hearing, but it's 10:10. I have to be in Hartford tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I don't know, you didn't have anything else to present. So at this point, the only thing left was the public hearing aspect of the project. And I apologize to the audience, but I don't think we're going to get to public hearing tonight. We're going to have to come back next month. Doug, I don't have the date of the meeting. I just want to make sure.
And I'll let my staff back there correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's October 23rd. Yeah. October 23rd will be the next regular meeting.
I would entertain a motion to continue this matter October 23rd.
And my only request would be insert in that to include to continue the matter and the hearing.
And it will include the public hearing, and I just want to add to that, at this point, check the agenda for the exact location.
Correct. I'll be anticipating town hall, but I would suggest anyone here to check the location. And before you make that motion, if I might just add, for anybody that's interested in providing public comment on this project, you can email written comments to me. If you have detailed comments, they're better to get across in writing. I will provide every public comment that I receive an email to the planning commission before the next hearing. That can often save a lot of time during the hearing, and it can allow you to get details across in a really precise way, as opposed to the oral comments, which can be harder for them to take into account on the fly in the next meeting. We will have a public hearing. You can email me. My email address is available on the website. I'll make it available on the web links. There's lots of resources available on our town website, so you'll find all these resources on the web links. There'll be a web link for August 23rd with my email on it. Feel free to reach out if you have questions at any point.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll continue this meeting and the public hearing October 23rd.
I'll make a motion that we continue this meeting and the public hearing on Coventry Crossings until our next scheduled meeting on October 23rd, with the location to be determined by the planning director.
I have a motion. Do I have a second by Mr. Kenny? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Next item is, thank you. Yes, we're going to dispense with the planning director report this evening, as was discussed, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I adjourn.
Mr. Kenny, motion to adjourn, second by Mr. Anderson, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's a long night.